But yeah, so we have been doing... This is the Survivor Man challenge I've been doing on stream. I also have the one that I've been doing for YouTube, which those videos drop on Thursdays around 5 p.m. EST most of the time. I've gotten nailed a couple of times where I post the video, and then YouTube is like, I'm just gonna take like a day and a half to process that video. I just don't feel like doing it right now. And then it's late. But that's outside my control. But with that said, we're going to pick up where we left off. This is the Survivor Man Challenge. For those who are unfamiliar with the Survivor Man Challenge, it's basically you start with $0, a chainsaw, and a dream. And not a whole lot else. And you have to build up from that on the hardest difficulty settings. We are very well far into this challenge. That we've kind of reached the point that it's not really... Like, the money bottleneck is not nearly the bottleneck it used to be. We've got the second best cultivator in the game, the best seeder in the game. We've got one, like, if you look at the harvesters, we don't have the very top tier, but we've got like one level below that. So we're doing pretty well. I don't remember for the life of me what we are doing, but we are doing it. Let's see. Oh yeah, we made our first not rectangle field, which is certainly going to be a disaster. But yeah, so that'll be great. So for those who missed the last time, we did buy the warehouse, and we did buy that plot of land out in the distance, where you can see we've already got a field plowed in there. I, for the life of me, don't remember what we were doing with any of these things. Yay, brain fuzz. But yeah, so we started with $0, a chainsaw. I started with this truck, which one of the rules is I may not sell the truck, and that was just so for people watching, they didn't have to watch me take trees one chunk of wood at a time from this hill all the way to the shop that you can't even see in the distance. So yeah. And we bought a large piece of equipment we always needed. We bought a large piece of equipment we always needed. What large piece of equipment did we buy? We got the warehouse, we got the land. Am I just not remembering something? We have our harvester. Alright, well in the meantime, first, let's check any sales worth considering. That's already, we have that. We can't afford any of the things we would care about here, but that's fine. Oh, we did get rid of the sheep. I did sell a bunch of stuff. And that... Oh, sorry, I did sell a bunch of stuff to make the giant harvester happen. And that did create the side effect of just, you know, not having what I needed for the sheep. And if I were to bought... Okay, so we're done with the flour for this season. That's fine. Right, so I know... Wait. It's next month is sorghum, right? Yeah, next month is sorghum planting. Alright. Yeah, no, we got the giant harvester the stream before last, but we are good. We did get that. And what I'm doing right now is I should have dropped these off the warehouse already. It's fine. I'm gonna go ahead and load up the stuff to put in the warehouse. How is the water doing on our greenhouses? It is good. Okay. But yeah, so we've reached the point now where I could just grab stuff, because the wool I sell tomorrow in-game, if I remember correctly. But, I need to plow the 2 fields that we put the sorghum in. Yeah, and that's, Captain Say says Streamlabs is ew, not just because it's unnecessarily overloaded. So, I know it gets a bad rep for being, you know, bloaty, as in just having too much junk in it, not bloaty like, you know, bloatware being a term. It is slightly unfair to do that, and the only reason I say that is OBS does perform way better than Streamlabs OBS, but the moment you start adding your plugins to, you know, regular OBS, it usually is kind of in parity with Streamlabs OBS. Now that said, if it has plugins that you wouldn't use, you're still paying the performance for it. You get the idea. Where do the animals go? I mentioned that a couple minutes ago, that basically I ended up selling the sheep and the pen, because one, if I'm going to get sheep again, but I'm going to get like the full-size pen versus the little dinky one we've got. And I had sold the equipment I needed to take care of them to be able to afford the giant harvester. So it's kind of one of those things. I was pretty much choosing between the sheep or the giant harvester, and the harvester won. Because the harvester should win. Like, if it was the full-size, like, big sheep thing, then there's more argument to be had, but the little one... Alright, note to self. The flour's heavier. So let's maybe not drag this thing up that hill again. Come on. Come on. Just bounce it. It's fine. That's right. You got 100 horsepower. That's something. Alright, so we're just doing our pickup to load this all into the warehouse. I do intend to have the blue tractor take over this responsibility once I get my next tractor. I just haven't done that yet. But we are at the stage in this run now where, honestly...
5-minute sounds.
Alright, thanks for the heads up, Strider. For those over on YouTube wondering what that's about, I am dealing with a cold that is like, I'm at the very beginning of it. And for the most part, it feels like it's going to be a fairly mild cold, but getting tea ready to help with the whole voice and all that. That's also reasons I'm doing a little extra farm sim today and whatnot, is to have a game that's something you can hop into. I don't need to sweat about it. You're absolutely going to be put on that side, aren't you? So just going with a game that I can hop in. I don't... Oh, sweet, it did put on the left side. I was worried it was going to toss on the right side, because I found at the warehouse, I have to, like, drive past the front each direction, because where the warehouse drop point is just too far into the building to go, and you can't just push the trailer in, because if you do that, then it just doesn't, if you just try and push the trailer into the building itself, there's an invisible wall, like, right on the other end of that, that square, so it's nowhere near deep enough. So what I'm going to do is to make sure, basically was the whole big thing I was saying, I have tea on the stove to make sure my voice doesn't die and my throat doesn't regret existence. And so I just need to have a reminder for when the tea is done. Because there's a good chance I won't hear it whistling where it's at. The acoustics are pretty good for keeping things quiet in this house. Terrible when you're trying to hear, like, if someone downstairs, like, trying to get your attention. Absolutely awful for that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab our cultivator, which is here. And I'll get this going on the cultivator. Yeah, not to mention I'm wearing a, you know, an enclosed headset and all those things. So basically I just asked, you know, someone to give me a reminder. Yeah. So I know by the time I get this started, that timer will be done, or right about. Are you making the tea concoction that the actor... I have no idea what they did. Yeah, no, Strider just gave me the 5-minute warning. So realistically, we're probably getting down to just a minute or two left. I'm just going to get this started, hand it over to the AI, and I'm going to run down, grab my tea, and something to put it on. So I'll move my phone so I don't put tea on high. 3-minute warning? Yeah. I figure by the time I get down there, if it's not to the point that the tea kettle's like whistling, it's definitely not going to be cold. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and set that, and I will be right back. So thank you again for tuning in, and I'll be right back. This should be the last interruption for a little bit. That's a lie. There'll be an interruption at 9 when Toom gets home. But other than that, other than the next interruption, it should be the last interruption for a while. All right, I'll be back in a couple minutes. Just gonna... I mean, it's only going to be like 1 minute. I just literally have to grab the tea kettle and something to sit it on. I've got everything else up here. All right, we'll be right back. See you in a minute. I was like, I'm just gonna put this right here, and I'm like, wait a second, that is like scalding hot liquid. I probably should not have that inches away from my hand while I'm trying to stream. That seems like a really good way to end up with a nice burn on your wrist. So I'm gonna pour that. It's gonna be undrinkably hot for a little bit there, but we get that. You could really use a new chair. Oh, I absolutely could as well. Yeah, I was trying to think if there's a way I could show it. Like the seat of this chair, it's got, like, you can see it's got like the fake leather stuff here. Like that's gone. That's just straight gone. It's not there anymore. There's like a couple ribbons of it left, but it's just like the mesh that's underneath there. Like this chair needs to be retired. I'm definitely not getting another racing style chair. These gamer chairs are crap. Like this, to be fair, I actually was relatively happy with the Muso, which is the brand I have here. The DX Racer, hot garbage. Did not like it. Did not like it at all. It was like sitting on a rock. So my intention is whenever I replace this to just get like your regular old like nice-ish office chair. But yeah, so I'm just not gonna get the racing style chair. The racing style chair, so far as the format, isn't good for really long sits anyways. And it's just one of those things that I would love to get like a Herman Miller or something like that. They are serious dollars though. Like you can get a couple of them that aren't horribly expensive, but most of them are just, whoo boy. But the places I've had those, I'm like, oh my god, this is a great chair. I could sit in this all day. But there's a lot of other not as horrifically expensive brands out there in like the office thing. Let's see. We also have one desk chair that was wide enough to deal with my size. Yeah, my issue is I'm tall. So I'm not... That's actually the one negative about this. So this chair is a big and tall chair. That's probably what's nice. For me, half the chairs I sit in, the headrest is like trying to slam the back of my skull, which is just not comfortable. But the big part isn't the best because my arms are not... I'm exaggerating here, but they're kind of out to the sides pretty far. And that's with them brought in as far as they go. So it's better than me being in a chair too short, but it is a chair too wide for me. Let me go ahead and get a little bit of this tea poured so it starts cooling off. Okay. So that'll take a good minute to cool off a little bit, because it was definitely whistling real good down there. But do you want to make your own? You want to make your own chair, but materials cost money too? Yeah. You just like having armrests digging into your sides? Oh yeah, no, I totally get it. Like, that's the reason why they need more sizes of chairs in general. Like, I wish for chairs they had just, you know, they had like your average size. They had chair for people who are shorter. They had chairs for people who are shorter and stockier. You had chairs for people who are tall, but still kind of average weight and all that. And then, you know, tall but wider built. Or just have a chair that is a far more flexible in the rain. Like, really, they could do a lot with just having it so the arms can adjust farther in and out. Would do so much to make chairs way more comfortable and ergonomic for a lot more people. But it is one of those things that so many chairs, like, the width, the configuration is only like maybe 2 inches wider or narrower. Which really is limiting. Oh, in the meantime, let's go ahead and get you staged on the sprayer. Wait, you don't need to be on the sprayer. You sit there and look pretty, I guess. Because I put down the fertilizer. Yeah, put down the fertilizer with the seeds, then I herbicide, then I do that. And we're just at the phase where I just need to get this cultivated. So that's the other thing I need to knock out today. How was the water? We can top off the water in the greenhouse in the meantime to keep being... I also forgot to shut off the tractor, so that's extra good. Is that because of the pain in the butt? It is to find one that fits? Yeah. I had intentions a long while back to make my own desk. Because, like, I have the know-how to do it, I have the tools to do it, I've built furniture myself. But, like, really, really go for, like, a perfectly personally made desk. I opted not to, because I was looking into sit-stand desks, because I want to do that, you know, where you just, like, hit a button, the desk goes up. That's one of the things I need to adjust. I gotta get some wire extensions and all that. I don't even remember which wires I need to do anymore. Because I do have a sit-stand desk, but I have not been doing much in the sitting or standing of the desk in quite a while. Because as I've changed my setup for streaming more and more, I have more and more wires that aren't long enough, that kind of thing, to be able to do it. And I need to figure that out, because that'd be good for me. Like, when I first started streaming, it was a whole thing. It wasn't a... I don't think it was a channel redeem. I'm trying to remember what it was. I think I had a timer that I would switch between sitting and standing throughout the stream. I'm gonna check to make sure I turned the burner off. I'm pretty sure I did, but I'm gonna double check that. I'll be right back. Alright, it was fine. False alarm. I just had that moment where it's like, did I turn the burner off? Normally I'm very confident in those things, but at the moment, like, I'm a bit fuzzy-headed and all that, so... I don't trust myself as that much. And it's not worth potentially burning the house down. Okay. Gonna make your own jeans? Yeah. But yeah, but as well as things that I went to make like a sit-stand or I was going to make a sit-stand desk, but because the manufacturers who make like the legs and the circuitry and all that for sit-stand desks, if you want something that's like actually of like quality and enclosed and would last, it ends up being a thing that you really can't, like, the cost if you buy all the hardware to support it, then it ends up being one of those things that at that point you're like, well, now I'm only like $100 or $200 away from just getting a nice one. Okay, well, in that case, I'll just buy one. That's pretty much the thing, because, like, I can't remember the brand. It was, Progressive Desks, I think? But I was looking at them because they were very inexpensive for a sit-stand desk that has, like, the control to, like, raise and lower it. And the reason they're so cheap is they are... sister company might not be the right word. Basically, they are like, multiple companies under the same umbrella of the company that actually manufacture the hardware that most sit-stand desks use, that are ones that, you know, go up and down and all that. So far as, like, electronically and all that. And so they only sell their desk for, like, a little bit over the cost to manufacture as a way of, like, promoting their own products. And it was just one of those things, like, I could have bought all the hardware to build my desk, but the only difference is the wood I built the desk out would have been a little bit nicer and cost me way more. And so it's just like, okay, I'll just buy the desk, I guess. That was you with COVID a few weeks ago. You had left the oven on and didn't notice it for an hour. Yeah, so I was going to do the COVID test earlier today. Most of my symptoms are very much more cold than COVID. But it's still one of those things. It's good to check, especially when, you know, I've got a family member who's immunocompromised that doesn't live with me, but I'm sure will want me to visit soon. But if it ends up being COVID, it'll be like, hey, no. Or if it ends up being flu or anything else, still no. Either way, I'm going to wait till I feel better, so I guess it doesn't really matter. But, they wanted to come up with plans in the next week or so it's like, alright, just, you know, I sent him a message earlier, it's like, just so you know, I'm letting you know now that I do appear to be having a cold or something, so it'll probably not be this week unless I start feeling better real soon. Which, like I said, I'm just starting on it. I don't know how bad it'll be. It feels like it's going to be a mild one. Like, you know, I'm a little stuffed, but not so much that I'm, like, you know, hacking and coughing and sneezing and snarfling and all the gross. Nope, that's still way too hot. That's fine. We'll get there. You know what? I'll probably just open this other drink I have sitting here. You got bad sinus headache today? The bag nasties? Yeah. Yeah. For you, it felt like a 24-hour flu. Sore throat lasted like 2 weeks. I've had, most of the people I've known who had COVID, like, got their tests, like, when they had, and they're like, yeah, you've got COVID. They were all knocked down for the most part. There's, like, one or two that weren't knocked down that long, where they were knocked down for, like, a good week and a half, 2 weeks for the most part. One or two that it stuck around way longer than that they just couldn't concentrate, like, it just really messed with them. I'm like 99% sure me and Toom got COVID while we were in New Zealand. We had gotten through all but one of the things we wanted to do. And then it was just one of those things that, like, you know, we basically stayed in the hotel for, I think it was a good, like, 4 days or so till we started to, like, properly begin to feel better. And even then, we didn't go very far. But, we waited till, like, we were worried about, like, flights getting out and everything else. Luckily, by then, we're like, okay, we've been feeling better for, like, a day and a half. We'll wear our mask, we'll do everything else, because, I mean, I don't know what the alternative would have been. Like, it's not like we could get a short-time ticket or whatever. As he's really saying, you had COVID and gotten the vaccine. The vaccine took you down longer than the virus did. I mean, part of that does go to, like, the vaccine trains your body to be better at handling things. Because the whole idea behind the vaccine is that it identifies the threat much earlier. Because otherwise the virus shows up in your body and your body goes, I don't know what this is. I don't know what I want to do about it. And then after a while, the body's like, you know what? F whatever that is. I don't want it. Versus when it comes back and you get the virus itself after the vaccine, your body goes, this SOB is back here again? And just immediately attacks it. So, most likely the reality would have been, had you not gotten the vaccine when you got the virus itself, it'd have probably been a somewhat worse version than that. Most of the time, like, I didn't get knocked out of the vaccine, like, because I've gotten the vaccine and the booster. There was one of the times that, like, the next day I was a little fuzzy, but otherwise the vaccine didn't do much past there. It was like the last booster I got. No, it was not the last. It was like the one before the last one was the one that knocked me the most. Or the vaccine was 3 years ago? Yeah. What desk were you considering? Oh, way back I was gonna build my own. I actually got a sit-stand desk. It's a, I forget the model of it, but it's a progressive brand desk. Is it is there a progression or progressive or whatever? And it's not because I had the name progressive. It's just they happen to be the name that they own the manufacture of the hardware that people, like a lot of the different brands use to build their desks. Let's see, your experience of having COVID was beginning down for 24 hours, and then you're okay. Couldn't get warm. Hugging a heater. Body aching. Thankfully, it's gotten better now. People aren't suffering as much. Yeah. Very difficult to get boosters around here. Yeah, around where I'm at in the U.S., if you want them, they're easy to get. But they don't do anything to advertise them. They don't do anything to let you know that they're coming. It requires you to basically go, okay, you know, they have the new shot for the year or whatever to handle things. Basically, it's the same kind of idea as like your flu vaccine, where they have their handful of strains they expect to be the problem. They get the booster for it, and you go in for that. So, like, in that regards, it's kind of the same concept. Which is probably the way it's going to be forever from now on. Just like the flu. You know, you get your shot, it covers most of your bases. Is there a chance you get a breakthrough, a different strain that manages to sneak past? Sure. It's not super likely, but sure. But generally, as long as you get the vaccine, if you do catch it, your risk of catching it are lower, and the risk of severity, like it being more severe, is lower. And most of the time, vaccines will just... For some people, though, like, they definitely mess with some people more. And there's also people who have, like, allergies. A lot of vaccines use egg as part of the binding and all that. I don't know exactly how the chemical side of it, but egg is in a lot of vaccines. So people with an allergy to eggs, vaccines can be real problematic. You guys clear they didn't have it available time? I mean, yeah. I don't know. Like I said, for me, availability is not a problem. It's just you kind of have to keep up yourself to know when the new one arrives. It's been a while since me or Tim have gotten a booster. I need to check to see even if there was one. I am definitely someone who believes in vaccines, that I think it's worth doing. Like, especially nonsense like measles. Like, the people who don't get that vaccine are like, are you daft? Where we've had multiple, like, outbreaks happen because people just not getting their vaccines and all that. It's like, yeah, you get that one, your immune system is properly effed for the rest of your life. Still pretty hot. Deski is an interesting one. They have a sit-stand frame only. You can use your own top. Yeah, that'd be pretty good. That's kind of what I was looking for when I was shopping. And to be clear, this is before I started streaming. I got the desk while I was still working the software, like my software dev training kind of job where I was doing the courses. My day's been pretty good. Like I said, dealing with like a little bit of cold stuff, but my day's been pretty good. But yeah, no, that'd been my hope, is to get like the frame. So for those who don't know how that works, you would have like your legs usually have like a hard brace between your legs so that the legs can stand on their own as rigid. Sometimes they'll have that, sometimes they won't. Sometimes they'll have like long supports. It's whatever. Everyone's gonna be different. But then the idea is you have, usually it's a an electric motor that's on a cam to like lift the desk and lower the desk for a sit-stand desk that's electronic. And then all you do is you just take whatever surface you want to put on and you just basically screw it in. It's a big flat thing. You want a desk made out of plastic, you can drop it on there. You want a desk made out of stone, as long as it can handle the, like, as long as the legs are gauge, you know, of enough strength to be able to handle the weight of the stone, sure, why not? You can have a granite desk. You're gonna have to get some pretty beefy cams for that, but you know, it'll do it. Most people do like either wood or faux wood. So like the one I have, it's underneath it all, it's particle board, but you know, it's got a Flamica kind of thing, a thin layer of wood on it. That's, I think this is I can't remember if I got walnut or cherry. It looks like walnut, but it's like it's still like a Flamica. It's just particle board underneath it. But my intention had been to get all the hardware and then go and get some oak, and then, you know, using my equipment like my planer and all that I have in the garage that who knows if it even works, because it's been sitting there for years now, not being used. But go through and like do all the work with that, like make myself a desk exactly how I want it, that kind of thing. But like I said, for me buying the hardware was almost the exact same price as buying the hardware with like the whole kit, you know, surface and everything. And at that point I'm like, okay, so I could put in all the extra effort to make it the way I want it. It's gonna cost me a lot more to do that. And objectively it would be a somewhat better product because it'd be proper wood versus particle board. Like I said, and it's covered. You would never know it's particle board if you didn't like look at the corners and see how like the texture doesn't quite, you know, work on the corners. Like looking at it, you won't notice it, but if you actually put your fingers on it, you're like, ah, yeah, it's a Flamica. Which Flamica, like I said, it's just a very thin, like paper thin cut of not paper thin. It's a little bit, it's like tag board thick. Yeah. Solid wood tops are very expensive. Right. Versus if I were to go and buy the wood myself and do it, I can actually bring that cost down a lot. But it's a lot of work. Young kids can do this other things. Yeah, particle board. Yeah, I'm not a fan of particle board. But it is one of those things that I do also, as much as I'll make a stink about particle board, there is definitely places where particle board makes sense. Like, there's definitely places where it's like, do you want to spend hundreds of dollars in making this out of, like, a proper wood? It's never going to, like, have to hold any meaningful amount of weight. The chances of it getting wet are pretty minuscule. Particle board's fine. I wouldn't want it to be exposed particle board, because humidity and all that. But, you know, like cabinets. Cabinets being particle board with a Flamica on it? Fine. The cabinets under your sink being particle board with a Flamica on it? I mean, there's certainly cost to be considered. But also, you know sooner or later you're going to have, like, a leak in your sink or something. What am I doing? I was like, something's not right here. Right, I've already cultivated this. What am I doing? I was like, I was staring at this and going, the texture's not changing. Oh, I already did this part. Did I mention there's a reason I didn't play Project Zomboid or a game that's punishing today? Because imagine that, but I'm fighting zombies and Venus dies because I just straight up walk into the zombie because the brain just goes, nah, not right now, not feeling it. Because that's exactly the kind of thing that would happen. That's, if people remember when I was on Jeremiah Wiener, the one I set the record with, there were times I would do that where it's like, yeah, today was supposed to be a Zomboid day, but also I'm feeling fuzzy-headed, so it's no longer a Zomboid day, because it's not worth throwing the run. Alright, so with that, what our time is to do, that's absolutely proper English, and definitely not a complete butchery of that sentence, is we will advance our day to tomorrow, because that's when we plant the sorghum. But yeah, nah, so it's like, I definitely, when it comes to like particle board and all that, as much as I poo-poo it because it's cheap and all that, very genuinely, there's places that make sense. Or honestly, with certain workbenches, like if you're going to be dealing with, like, it depends on what you're doing on the workbench, like what type of work you're doing. There's definitely stuff where just you're not dealing with, you know, you're not dealing with like humidity or whatever, that just having an exposed particle board workbench is fine. You're gonna get a bunch of paint on it. Who cares? It's particle board. When it gets ruined, throw it out. If it gets ruined. You're doing somewhere you're gonna have lots of super glue. Yeah, particle board. Again, because you don't care about making a mess of it, it's freaking particle board. You're lime, aren't you? Oh, no, you're not. I was like, when it didn't open, I was like, you're lime, aren't you? What is the only inconvenient thing? Okay. So we need to do an errand. And that's because I am out of seeds. I honestly could just set the worker to... You can set the worker to top off the seeds in the fertilizer as they go, and it works fine. It costs you more, you get to keep a little bit less of the money. But, you know, it's fine. What's sad is that little tractor has about the same horsepower we're rocking right now on this one. The big tractor we got way more. Yeah, what we'll do is, once I get the bread loaded into the warehouse, then I'm going to run the pallet up, get the seeds, and get them doing the 2 fields over there for the sorghum. Oh, I actually did manage to sneak both in. Nice. Yeah, so as you can see, we are slowly filling up just more and more pallets in the warehouse. I haven't used the interface to realize how I get those back out, but that's fine. The idea is pretty straightforward. When it comes time to sell something that we've tossed in the warehouse, I just run up, say, give me the thing, and they give me the thing. Alright. Big seeds, 8 by... Okay. Okay. Exit. Has Planet Crafter been playing the channel before? It has not. I know I looked at it, it looked interesting, and then I kind of forgot about it. I'm just checking something. Toon was letting me know that she saw a proper danger noodle while out and about at work today. Not the danger noodle that you look at and be like, it's a snake, and then it's like a garter snake or something like that, where you're like, yeah, but it's a snake that's like your friend, not something to be worried about. But she saw water moccasin, cottonmouth, whatever you want to call it, which is legit a danger noodle. Because they're extremely venomous, and they're very aggressive snakes. Very territorial. So where you'll usually hear me, or it'll be like, oh no, snake's your friend. Like, you don't have to be into them, but you're like, you know, they're your buddies. Don't hurt them. And then you hear that snake and be like, nope, straight up, not welcome here. Nope, get rid of it. Oh, finally hit 1.0 today, and it is on sale too. Good low-key survival type builder game. Gotcha. Yeah, that's what I remember, is that it was like in the survival crafter kind of game. Yep. It was a snake. Like, she didn't have to get like close to us, like on the side of the road. Just because she put a picture. I would put it at the camera, but you wouldn't be able to make out hardly anything other than there's a very vaguely like brownish looping thing. Same with spiders. Most are great roommates, but others get to shoot. Yeah, like the vast majority of spiders, you're like, no, leave it. It's your buddy. You know, like they're your friends. They make all sorts of not great things in your house. And then you get something like a black widow, and you're like, no, they can go die in a fire. Literal fire. Let's see, 2 kids came in. The youngest could have been more than 5, the other probably 11. The youngest suddenly runs out the door with a bottle of Mountain Dew. Older sister goes running after her, yelling, you can't steal? Yeah. Yeah. It's fun knowing you stay with both black coats and brown recluse. Yep. I know how that goes. But do you know how a dog at a leash can run in circles and go absolutely nowhere? Yep. Spiders are outside animals. Like, don't get me wrong. That's, where I like defend spiders and snakes. That doesn't mean I'm not gonna jump if, like, a snake falls from a tree on me or directly in front of me, which I have had happen. And it's also, like, I'm gonna get startled if, like, I, you know, suddenly spider. Like, absolutely. Like, I get that. But, because that's not even, like, a fear of the animal. That's just being startled. That's what the girl did. She ran in circles from one side of the parking lot to the other, never going more than 10 feet from the store. That definitely feels like kids pressing their boundaries, but, like the younger one, but, like, not in the greatest way. Like, you know, there's pushing your boundaries when you're, like, 2 or 3, where your parents tell you to leave the trash alone, and, like, you walk up and you're not, like, going in the trash, or you put your hands on, like, the edge of the trash can, like, don't go in there. And then you kind of see, like, how far you can go before they actually do something. Oh. There's a pungent. Spiders are outside animals, to which the response is, there's one inside my keyboard, but don't worry, it's under control. But Tish. Alright, so let's top off the cedar. I need to change you to sorghum. And I need to figure out what the new field's gonna be. I can't remember if we had already established that. I'm pretty sure we'll have the money before the canola would grow to build the oil plant, whatever it's called, the oil mill. We can get this running the cedar and then do our figure in there. It's got the space it needs in there. Let's see. Well, you know their parents. They live right in the town next door. Mom called saying, you need to come because your youngest decided to play one of her silly games. And she got her older sister roped in. Yup. Okay. So, let's do a little checking on things. So let's go to the store. So the plan is to get the oil mill. So we can go production... factories. So we got our bakery, got sugar mill, tailoring shop, cereal, oil mill. So we have the oil mill. So that's 80,000. And honestly, I can fit that over here, and it won't look that bad. So I think the oil mill is going to live over here too. I might rotate it that way, though. Make it narrower profile. It should face the street. Yeah, I think I'll do it that way, because that should give me more enough time, like more enough room to squeeze in between there. I'll still have room to make like a pseudo parking lot. Put like the bakery parking lot where this is here. And then, like, the industry parking lot along here. So I think we put that there. It costs 80,000. I already have 50. One moment. My worker was just ready to keep sitting there and charge me money, be like, look, man, I am not moving. You're moving. But, if we check the seasons and all that, I would need to plant the canola in August. Okay, yeah, so plant the canola in August, we'd harvest in July, so I've got an entire season to grow. So yeah, we can absolutely do the oil. So pretty much what that means is the new field is just going to sit there for a while till we're ready to do that. And also, how are the prices with wool? Wait, what? Okay, wool is basically ready to go. So we sell now, get the wool out of here. Yeah, so what I will do is, since I mentioned the parking lot and all that, when we go in and put down... Oh, what's the key? Da-da-da-da. There we go. What we will do is, when it comes time to build the oil mill, I will also take the time to do the parking lots and everything else like that I've talked about doing for a while. I think when we buy our next tile and expand, I will probably expand it for grains, and then we will take these littler fields out, maybe. The little field behind, definitely. And considering putting more businesses and infrastructure back there as well. Because that little field is kind of a joke so far as what it gives me for all that, and the vehicles have a lot of problem dealing with it because of all the obstructions and yada yada yada.
Your greed will be your downfall.
No, more greed. Greed good. Greed make money. I like money. Can I have a money? No, I'm teasing. I would like a monies. Can I has monies? Ah, it's finally drinkable, chat. Some nice green tea. I was gonna make my blood orange tea, and then I realized I already drank it all. Which was a real shame. But green tea's good. I like green tea. Okay, so it'd be like an extra 10,000, give or take. 7,000. That's right, we did sell the sheep a little bit before we would have hit this month. That's fine. Alright. Who here is excited for Anomaly tomorrow? Because I don't stream tomorrow when it drops, which is a shame. And it is going to be really, really, really hard for me to not play it. I intend to not play it tomorrow, so that way when I do play it on Friday, you do get to see, like, first reactions, experience, whatever. Because I feel there's a lot of value in that particular type of content, you know, people experiencing a game for the first time. Sorry. So what I'm probably going to do on my own time, so that I've heard on my own time, I'll probably just work on achievements in Stardew Valley. You heard English tea is better than American tea? I mean, I would argue English are like way more into tea than Americans on average. Like, don't get me wrong, there are plenty of Americans who are tea drinkers, but I would say, as far as things go, that there's a lot of places that people are far more passionate about their tea, like as a social thing. Please tell me that's just not sitting there waiting. For the record, is definitely sitting there waiting. Not working right now. Have fun with it. You'll watch the DLC, but you won't buy it yourself? That's fine. Just not into Super Rimworld, or thematically just not into the theming of it? Just out of curiosity, or just you don't have the budget right now. It's also totally fine if you'll be, well, you know, you'd rather not say. How much is it? I actually have no idea. I would assume it's gonna be like 25, 30 bucks. Because that's usually how much they've charged in DLC, is between like 15 and 30 bucks, depending on like if it's a recent DLC or it's been around a while and all that. But I've never gone into a DLC from RimWorld and gone, I didn't get my money's worth. Like, you know, I'll say some negative things about royalty personally as far as the DLCs. I still don't regret buying it. Honestly, of the DLCs I bought in games, I think the only DLC for a game that I've purchased that I was like, I wish I hadn't bought this, was the airport DLC for City Skylines 1. Like, all the other DLC for City Skylines that I did get, I was pretty happy with. But that one felt like it was genuinely a step into making the game worse. Does you have 4,000 hours in RimWorld? Park the game unless something monumental changes the gameplay radically. And half a dozen different ending type, The last 200 hours are basically just doing Arco Nexus. Since you hadn't done it yet. Yeah, that's fair. So you just burnt out in the game. Totally fair. I'd be curious, like, by all means, wait and see. Like, that's what I would suggest. But by all means, I could see this DLC being one of those ones that, like, massively disrupts the way the game plays, which can be bad or good. The good news with, like, games like RimWorld is if you do play it and it's very disruptive in a game in a way you don't like, you can turn it off. Now, granted, that would imply that you kind of wasted your money if you don't like it. You're just never excited about this DLC? Can't explain it? Hey, I mean, that's the reason I asked if thematically, because I know there are people thematically who are just not really into, like, the eldritch, spoopy, that kind of stuff. Which is totally fair. Just like there are people who are just not into zombies, there are people who are not into, like, you know, like various horror, that kind of thing. And that's totally fair. I do feel like it is a good fit for RimWorld. That they do kind of poke into different things. And where we've got, like, you know, science gone amok with the biotech. We've got effectively religion gone amok with the with ideology. Let's see. You're just curious how much, if any, change the DLC will cause in the fairly static gameplay loop? That's what I'm curious about as well. Yeah, thematically I find it interesting. Yeah, no, me too as well. Like, I'm not a huge, like, into, you know, Cthulhu, Eldritch horrors, that thing. I think, like, I don't have any, like, negative on it, like, not into it, but it's also not one of those things that's a huge draw for me. But for RimWorld, it's the first time that we're stepping out of, like, again, we had what was effectively royalty, which is royalty. It's like that kind of thing, nobility. We had ideology, which is an entire thing that's basically about, like, you know, ideologies, religion, that kind of thing. We had biotech, which is like, hey, what if just science just said, you know what, we don't care about guardrails, like, do all sorts of weird genetic stuff. And so it kind of explores that way, versus I feel like this is like the supernatural DLC. So it is kind of an interesting that they've gone with like another giant arc. Now, granted, we don't know a lot about it. And part of it is I have been deliberately keeping myself, you know, naive to the spoilers and all that. But with that like whole bit is I understand there'll be some way you opt into it other than just you turned on the DLC. Like, there'll be mission types and all that, but it seemed to imply that there would be something like in Royalty where you can say, you know, yes, I would like to help the Empire, or no, I'd like to betray the Empire, and that sets you on a path of, so to speak. And you also have, like, ideology. You can kind of choose your ideologies to either have stuff that, like, really, really messes with your gameplay, like choosing something like Rancher or whatever, or you can go with the route of choosing something like individualist, collectivist, or prolicizer, which are fairly neutral things that they don't really change much about how the run goes. They're pretty benign, but then you have ones like, you know, again, like Rancher, Tree, like the Tree Connection and that, which Transhumanist, which dramatically change the way you're gonna play your run. But they add stuff for all ages, from Primal Ages, Medieval Ages, Futuristic Ages. This one is a bit more modern. I mean, I'd argue that Biotech is the, well, I guess Biotech would be the Futuristic Age. Yeah. Trying to think, are you saying that ideology is Primal Ages? Because even, I wouldn't actually say their timeline like that, because if you look at, like, for example, the nobility thing, sure, we look at, like, the whole, you know, kings, dukes, and that as being medieval times, but also then they're giving us Zeus hammers and plasma swords, and I see Royalty as Warhammer 40k DLC, personally, but there's that. Versus ideology, I wouldn't say really associates with any age at all, because you got like the very not archaic, because it's not really around time, the really like very earth-based things, as well as things that are like sci-fi and all that. And then biotech is definitely futuristic. Like, there's no question about that. Biotech is literally new tech. But I feel like that's the only one that really... I mean, all of them have lots of modern stuff into it, so I don't really see it as associated with the timeline. Because if anything, you'd say, like, the original game having a tribal start would be the closest thing you get to, like, Primal. I also wouldn't say, like, Cthulhu monsters and horror abominations like Walls of Flesh and all that kind of stuff is really modern age either, so much as thematically different. I see it as like the supernatural DLC is the way I'm looking at it personally. That we have, you know, the science DLC, the ideology/religion DLC. We've got like vaguely like, you know, whatever you want to call the royalty one, whether it's like, you know, because it's not necessarily medieval, but yeah, which is stuff like exactly. So that's what I'm looking at. As you look at like the royalty one, which would be more like a hierarchical society and all that, titles, royalty, whatever you want to put that under. Because I keep wanting to go back and be like, oh, like, you know, with kingdoms and their fiefdoms and all that. I'm like, well, they really don't have any of those mechanics in it. It's really just about the titles and the entitlements that come with it is what royalty is about, and then some psychic powers that come with it. So it's like, royalty to me is, they saw Warhammer 40k and said, what if, but RimWorld, which I think is a totally fair thing. At the time, I was very mixed about it, and it still is the least favorite for me of the DLC. because at the time, my interpretation of RimWorld was very, it is sci-fi, like sci-fi Western, and then when Royalty came out, it kind of challenged the way I saw the world of RimWorld, because very clearly this is way more like Warhammer 40k themed with psychic powers and all that. Which again, I don't think it's a bad DLC. I actually think it's a pretty good DLC. But for me, it's the one DLC that kind of went against my perception of what the game was. And so even to this day, with that of the that DLC is the one that I tend to engage with the least. Even though the psychic powers are absurdly powerful. Like, the psychic powers will absolutely win or lose you fights depending on if you use them well or use them poorly. And also, the Zeus Hammer was introduced with that. And I do have to say, of all the weapons in the game, the Zeus Hammer is easily my favorite by a very large margin. Alright, we're getting pretty close to time that I will be able to get you on the sprayer going. Oh, you know what? I'm pretty sure I was low on herbicide, if I remember correctly. Gotcha. That said, like I said, I haven't spoiled myself to the DLC. Like, I know from, like, the little tidbits that the Wall of Flesh is one of those things that you do fight, and that there are other supernatural things you run into, because they kind of revealed that on the get-go. But, I deliberately haven't been reading all the spoilers and all that, because I think it will be fun for me as a player that we get into the world, and then suddenly they're like, oh, there's this thing going on. You're like, I don't know what that is. That if I already had the context of, like, there being, I don't know, revenants or whatever, I'd be like, oh, that's probably a revenant. Versus that unknown this thing. Hopefully it's not a reskin of Diablos. I mean, if that's a mod, I don't care because I haven't used it. And also, RimWorld has never been one to, like, reskin stuff, so I have zero worry about that. Will it borrow ideas from a bunch of mods? Almost certainly. Because you look at, like, half of the 1.5 update things, and, like, half of the 1.5 update, the quality of life stuff, were you know, things that were mods. And I know there were people who were actually like, oh, how dare they use the mods and all that. And it's just like, well, no, it's just an idea that makes sense, which is why someone made a mod that did it. You wonder how you do with Phasmophobia? I've played Phasmophobia on the channel 2-3 times. One wasn't even that long ago. I played Phasmophobia in October. I enjoy Phasmophobia. It definitely isn't a good fit for the channel, but as like a one-off thing on the rare occasion, you know, it can certainly work. But yeah, no, I collabed with, we had Pank Raru was there, and I had a couple others, because I had put the invite out into some of the streaming groups I am in, as well as did a couple individual invites. I didn't really get that much of a response, which is because at the time a whole bunch of other games had dropped in that same kind of realm of games. So that kind of sucked the air out of the situation. I'm gonna try to see if I can't do this whole field with this. I've got to wait till the cedar's out of the way first. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get this positioned. And then when the cedar's done, we'll take it to our field. I'll spray this with the herbicide, then the fertilizer. By then, the tractor should be done with the other field seeding. Yeah, no, it was a good time. I do relatively well in Phasmophobia. I'm behind on a lot of the tech in it because I haven't played it on any meaningful capacity in like literal years. So when I play, it's like, oh yeah, there's all these new mechanics, like, cool, I have no idea what any of them are. But I do pretty good about being like, alright, you know, we verified this piece of information, here are the other 2 or 3, and managing to stay on task. I'm also the kind of person, like, you have a lot of people who, the moment anything happens, they'll bail out, and they will just not be willing to stay inside the house. And I have absolutely zero problem going, okay, well, we need to piss off the ghost to get it to do this. Alright, I'll be in the room pissing the ghost off real fast. Because that, like, no matter how, like, it's game mechanics. No matter how you go about it, someone has to do it. If you want to be able to guess it, you've got to get the ghost to do the thing in the room. So you sit in the room and all that. And I'm sure it's one of those things that when you play it enough, you start getting a feel for, like, the frequency of when to expect a hunt and all that kind of stuff, to be like, okay, I've been in the room too long, and I don't have any of that down because I don't play it enough. Staying out of the house defeats the whole purpose. I feel like it's not people staying out of the house that's the problem. I mean, you certainly do have that for people who just aren't into it, but I feel like a lot of people, you know, the lights will flicker and they'll be like, all right, we need to get out of here. You know, get out of here, like, reassess, go back in. It's like, but there's nothing that's changed. Like, when we look at it, we got the one piece of information. You know, you figured out they talk on the box or whatever. Or, you know, EMF 5 or whatever your first piece of data is. And it means I have 3 more pieces of data, and I have to, you know, one of those I've got to lock in to be able to identify what the ghost is. Or 2 or whatever it is. But, like, I've got to get the next piece of information. Which means I need to stay in here. And there's certainly something to said to go, okay, I've been in the house too long, I need to go outside and take my sanity pills and come back in. That's fine. But, I feel like a lot of people don't want to be the person that dies, and so try to mitigate their own individual risk as much as possible. But inherently, with the way the game runs, someone has to go in and take the risk. Or also, people read that, you know, you need to be alone or not be alone, and then will immediately ignore it, and it'll be they need to be alone, and everyone tries to be in the room at the same time. And you're like, hey, I need you to go away. It's like, it's not me, it's the ghost, but you need to leave. And for the record, when I was playing with the others, I didn't have any problems. Like, we didn't have any issues like that. But that is one I found when I see other people playing the game, that I do find a lot of people, you know, the people who are the pros who play it all the time, obviously that's not his thing. But people who, like, hop in, that runs into a lot. It's like, yo, there's a checklist. Hey, Alanorama. Good to see you. It's going pretty well. I was having, I'm dealing with, like, I'm maybe coming down with a cold kind of thing. So I was dealing with some little bit of brain fuzz, and was waffling about what the heck to play. So we had a vote on what to play, and we're like, yeah, let's do some farm sim. For those that don't know Alanorama, absolutely fantastic content creator. Definitely someone to check out, fellow member of the Halcyon Frequency stream team and all that good stuff. So definitely someone I would highly encourage you to check out. Plays lots of RimWorld. You know, may just play some RimWorld with the new DLC dropping. I'm gonna guess that's probably gonna. Obviously, they're going to play it. I'm being facetious. Obviously, they're gonna be playing some RimWorld with it dropping, so definitely gonna want to check that out. They consider them. Alanorama considers herself a RimWorld Plus streamer. They do primarily play RimWorld, but also sometimes other things. Alright. Let's see. Jager says, you're generally not into spooky games because you don't find them scary at all. I find them predictable and boring. Well, that's, when we did, like... Well, first, again, follow Alanorama. But, definitely good times over there. But, for me, it's not that I find them boring. I find some of them kind of silly, which is a true thing that happens. But for me, generally, with, like, a lot of the spooky games, when it comes to content creation, there's a lot of people who seem to want to get me to play it because, you know, they want to see me jump and startle and all that kind of stuff, but that's not how I react to a lot of those things. It didn't happen the last time I played it on October, but the time before it I played it, I had Yeah, you know that slightly sicky brain? Yeah. So it's like every other... Well, it's also with, like, RimWorld coming out. It's like, I could get into this game that's going to definitely take me many streams to hit a satisfactory conclusion. No, that sounds like a bad idea when I know I'm going to be binging some RimWorld soon. But yeah, so for me with, like, games like Phasmophobia, I'm not the person who would, like, jump out of my seat or scream or whatever. Usually when I get startled in, or not startled, with, like, the way they do a lot of stuff in, like, Phasmophobia, I'm the kind of person who finds myself cornered and you see, like, the ghost showing up, and I don't, like, panic. You'll hear me instead go, oh, well, that sucks. And then, you know, you die. Or, welp, rip me, or, like, it'll be something like that. It's like, well, I'm screwed, or whatever. Yeah, super excited tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow's my day off, and it is going to be extremely hard to not play. And I'm not going to do it, because I'm going to make sure when I play on stream, it is the first time I'm playing it. Like, I'll test it tomorrow, just be, like, not even, like, play the game, but, like, does it boot up? Does it, you know, like, does it run? Like, I'll do all that stuff just to make sure, so I don't troubleshoot on stream. But I'm literally going to load up the moment the pawns hit the ground. That's it. Yeah. Take your time off and binge watch follow. I need to do that. I have, like, I keep forgetting that's a thing. The other one I do want to do is I want to watch more of the Marvel, or X-Men 97. I very much enjoyed that. I also love all the people who are upset that it's, you know, even remotely political, because clearly they have never read or seen anything X-Men if they didn't think it was going to be political. Because it's freaking X-Men. There's not a second part. It's freaking X-Men. That's what it is. Like, from its inception, it's X-Men. The only way they would assume it's not political if the only thing they've ever watched is, like, Wolverine. And even that definitely gets there. But yeah, no, Fallout's what I need to watch. You have a long weekend, so RimWorld is going to consume your life from the moment you get home tomorrow? Yeah, I'm expecting, you know, a good solid 4 or 5 days minimum that'll be just RimWorld is most likely what's going to happen. Maybe longer, but that is the minimum I would expect. And then after that, it'll probably be like split streams like you normally do. Yeah, the series that portrays their main character as a heavily discriminated minority? Totally not gonna get political? No way. Oh no, it's... I'll clean it up in a moment. I wasn't paying attention. We've ever so slightly missed the edge there. It's fine. But yeah. Days, weeks, we'll see. Yeah, no, it's... I'm probably underestimating how much, because RimWorld is the second most played game on the channel, period. And almost at any given point you tune in the channel, other than there's like one gap that I took a pretty long RimWorld break on the channel. But for the most part, at any point in the channel, RimWorld's been there. Project Zomboid only led because, with the partner push and that being the main thing, I did go real hard on that for a while. But I would definitely say RimWorld's more consistently been the channel. New library? So my intention when I first start the new DLC is I'm not going to be doing a challenge run or anything like that, because I honestly have no idea. 61 out of 100? Yeah, I was genuinely worried about doing the streamathon, like really messing with stuff. But enough people went with upgrading their subs versus just gifting a bunch of subs that it definitely helped out more than it hurt, which made me really happy. Have you been staying spoilers free? Spoiler free? Yes. Absolutely. I think the command might be plus? There we go. It was definitely one of those ones that I was like, oh man, I know, because that was one of the, I think that's one of the ones that Enoch handled for me, which I really appreciate. Dude, spoiler free is the best I can. You can't wait to explore it. Yeah, but my intention for the very first colony we do in RimWorld is it's not going to be any kind of challenge because I have no idea what I'm getting into. I have no idea what to expect, and I think doing a challenge run will simply mean we won't see much of the new content because I'll probably fall over dead the moment I see the new content because I have some other challenge that, you know, after the fact I'll realize is a very poor fit for the new thing. So the first colony, we're not going to be playing at a super hard difficulty or anything like that. I know there's going to be the ones who start at 500% brutality, and that's fine. For me, it's going to be like adventure story, maybe strive to survive somewhere in that ballpark. I'll probably still do a tribal start, unless there's a new start that sounds really interesting to me. At which point, then I'll probably do the new start. But yeah. But yeah, no, that's, like, that's one of the things I like about, unrelated to the RimWorld thing, circling back to the X-Men thing. That's one of the things I always liked about X-Men, is this going back to, like, the early 90s. And the whole thing was set up on politics. Like, it had heavy, heavy, heavy leanings to the civil rights movement. Literally, Magneto is a survivor from Auschwitz. So, you know, that's a little bit of a political situation there. And all that. And even when you look at the main story arc, like, ignoring all the history side of it, even the commentary about the two different sides of what's going on in X-Men is you've got Xavier who's like, we should work with them, we should, you know, we shouldn't resort to violence, you know, and they do to, like, you know, it's always in, like, self-defense kind of thing, or, you know, only violence against, like, the people who are actively trying to kill them or in whatever. But generally, the idea is it's supposed to be, like, a peaceful, non-aggressive, whatever, coexistence kind of thing, versus Magneto's, like, hey, you know, F with us and we'll F with you kind of thing, which, of course, happens. So that even has, like, direct ties with different movements over reality, where you can kind of look at either side's perspective and go, okay, but from their perspective, they're not the bad guys. Like, you're being actively attacked and attempted to be killed. You know, responding in a non-violent way is certainly one answer, and you'll have just as many people who are like, well, no, they're going to take the might makes right kind of stance, where, hey, you gave me a black eye, well, I'm going to do worse kind of thing. And then it's one of the things that makes the characters interesting about that is they all have their own get-ups. They all have their own stuff going on that are allegories for so many things. So I do really appreciate that. And so it made me laugh so much, or people like, oh, this show's woke. I was like, man, if you don't think this has been this way since the very beginning, you have never participated in this IP. Or you missed the point. Even though it does sound great, just like to see what's gonna go in the DLC. Yeah, no, I'm excited for it. I don't know what to think of it yet, obviously, because I haven't played it, and because I haven't spoiled myself on it. Like, there's just a lot of bits and pieces I just don't know. Yeah, no, it's people, when something disagrees with them, they'll label it that way. There was a while I tried to make that, or a variation of that, an auto-modded term on the channel, but there's too many not political reasons you'd use that term to make that even reasonable. But usually when people complain and they say something's that way in a negative way, they usually end up banned shortly after when they double and triple down after I tell them to give up. Imagine that. It's almost like people who have that as their approach to life aren't actually interested in seeing anyone else's perspective on anything. Funny how that works. I should probably move off of that. Yeah. I mean, like, any politics aside or whatever, it's just, in all art, you're gonna find politics. Music, plays, games, movies, comic books, stories. It's hard to have something that doesn't feel empty because they try to not have any politics in it. And certainly there's stuff that, like, the politics are less obvious, but every decision has, you know, potential political implications. I also love, I used to ask people, like, what's a game that isn't political? And they could show, like, games like Overcooked or something, which, sure, okay. You know, like, really, not bad way, but, like, you know, fairly simple games. But, like, any game that has a depth plot. And half of the games you'd hear them go is, like, you missed the entire point. Like, RoboCop, they're like, oh yeah, back in the days, like, RoboCop, that wasn't political. It's like, did you watch the movie? Have you participated? I don't understand. Did you miss all of it? Or like all the old RPGs have it. Spore has stuff. Even SimCity does. Like the original SimCity. They artificially made trains just better than cars in every respect because Will Wright liked trains and liked public transportation. It doesn't bother me, but it's like, but that's still a choice that, you know, was political. It may not be overt and in your face, but it is. And I mean, heck, you look at games like The Forest and Sons of the Forest, it has a story, it has a narrative to tell that arguably is political. You know, the becoming the very thing that, you know, you sought not to be, or whatever you want to go with. That's actually a very common theme in the survival crafter is, like, how far are you willing to go to survive? What lines of, you know, what's considered common decent behavior are you willing to bend? Is a very, very common trope in survival games. It's one reason why so many of them include stuff like cannibalism. Yeah, it's like one of those things that, like, Tetris, Pong, Angry Birds, Candy Crush, like games that, like, from a story aspect, there's really just not anything there. It's just fun gameplay. Those are about the only ones that, you know, politics managed to not be there. I want to see you play Subnautica again. It's such a cool game. The problem is the big part of Subnautica that makes it so charming is the exploration and discovering a world and all that kind of stuff. It's one of the reasons I am hands down in the category of, if you spoil Subnautica for someone, you ruin Subnautica for someone. Because that is the biggest part of the charm to me, is just the exploration of this, like, interesting and bizarre world. Let's see, it's interesting that people are surprised how fast morality can go out the window in life or death survival situations. I actually push back a lot on that. Like, don't get me wrong, there are definitely people who will take things to extreme when survival is on the table. But also, I would argue, most people will actually kind of screw themselves on survival because they do want to be decent human beings and all that. And don't get me wrong, the lines of what is and isn't moral do bend as things get more and more desperate. But I do feel like a lot of people generally will try and do what they believe is the last, you know, is the right thing. Like, now, they might have very warped perceptions of what the right thing is in that moment, but they will generally try and do the right thing. They won't go and, like, kill a friend or whatever because it'll help them survive a little bit. Most people won't. They will try and survive with their friend as long as they can. They will try and do what they can the best. Are they going to shirk laws that say don't break into a store to get food? Yeah, absolutely. If you're starving, sure. Because it'd be dumb, like, in a situation where, like, there's an evacuation or whatever, and people are starving to death. It'd be like, oh no, the law says I'm not allowed. No, get your food. It's a piece of glass and some food. Like, a whole bunch of people dying for no reason isn't worth preserving. There's enough water to swim in. But yeah. But the idea of everyone turning into, like, roving gangs that are out to get each other over desperate supplies, that is not a perception of humanity I've personally believe in, nor is one that has been, for the most part, has matched the way things play out in, like, natural disaster situations. You do have some people who do nefarious stuff, just like any group of people. There's going to be some percentile who do not so great things. Why am I going over here? The sprayer's still over there. I was going to move it over here. But generally people are good. Again, like, even you hear about, like the cartoonishly awful things that some people who have just too much power and money do. From their own perspective, the way they've been raised and the experiences they've held, they still think they're doing good. It's just their perception of the world is so horribly warped. If you step back and look and go, well, very clearly you're not. But even in their story, they're the hero. It's one of the reasons why dehumanizing language is so dangerous. I mean, human beings, yeah, we are weak. I won't disagree with that. Like, I do believe people who feel they can't be brainwashed, like, you know, tortured kind of brainwash, are entirely naive of how fast, when someone has put you in that circumstance, you know, people can change your reality. But there's a difference between being someone who can be broken and whatever, and someone who, just because times get desperate, suddenly turn into being awful people. That's just not my perception on the universe. I like to think more of people. Like I said, there will be people who do awful things, certainly. That's the same, like, that's the reasons I hate it when, you know, you'll have one instance of one bad thing and people, like, condemn a demographic over it. It's like, no. Like, if that's the way it works, literally all demographics are condemned because everyone has problem people in their group. The only way you win is if you have a group of one and they happen to be the one good one. Even someone fully trained to withstand it, everyone has their limits. Yeah, no, people doing dumb stuff in a situation that is desperate, sure, I can agree to that. But, generally people will try and do the right thing most of the time. The thing that can happen is the perception of right can get warped. If you believe people have been wronging you your whole life, then the right thing is, you know, like, it's not considered a wrong thing in that headspace to get what you're owed, kind of thing. And, you know, from, again, the outside, you'd go, wait a second, that's not how it works. That's not okay. But if someone... were you not trying to bring water over to the new plot? No, so I'm trying to get the herbicide to the next plot to do that. But I want to switch to the bigger tractor because it's faster and better suited for it. Exactly. Right. I do find, generally speaking, most people as far as like raw numbers, most people when things get desperate will have a tendency to work together. Evolutionarily and socially over time, that is what's carried humanity through so many things. Humanity has almost gone completely extinct twice in its history. Where we had one case where we were down to, I think it was something like around 10,000 people was all that was left of humanity during the, I believe it was the Ice Age. And for most species, that means you're done. You already lost. There's no coming back. It's why human beings are so genetically narrow so far as the variation in DNA, is because we basically got wiped out and just barely clawed our way back from the brink. But all of that was working together, not... You know, you have a species that everyone's out for themselves, they don't last. There's no point in talking about them because they don't exist anymore. Our population, was it down to 1,200? I remember it was something like absolutely absurdly low. And to give you an idea, usually when you're talking about animals going extinct, once they start getting down to the tens of thousands, like as in tens thousands, not tens of thousands as in under 100,000s. But like you're getting to like, you know, 10, 12, 18,000. That's usually the writing is kind of on the wall for that species. Not that we've never brought them back from there, but, like, really, really, you're at that last hope. JD, at the time, they would have been tribal, like, tribal-based. So you'd probably have them, I don't know what the group sizes were at the time, but you would have had, like, pockets of people here and there. But, and a big part of that is when you have that small of a population, the genetic pool gets narrow and recessive traits start to become more pronounced. And a lot of those traits are usually where you get, like, lots of health problems. You know, where we talk about, like, the dangers of, like, inbreeding and all that kind of stuff. That's the big risk of when you have a narrow genetic diversity. Is you become far more susceptible to disease and stuff like that. Because that's actually one of the big things that help you survive disease, is just having as much genetic variety as possible, so that no disease is really well suited to hit everybody. Like, that there'll be some percentage of people will be immune just by the fact that their genetics are different enough that whatever protein the disease latches onto to function is different enough, it just, you know, doesn't work. Man, no, and you can even go with modern stuff, though. Like, I live in an area that we get hit with natural disasters. I've been in the eye of 4 or 5 hurricanes. It's at least 4. I don't remember. It's been enough. Where we were without power and access to good water for weeks and weeks and weeks. I mean, I should rephrase that. I was not without power for that long, but I was without, you know, good water for that long. And generally what happened is, as people got services back, it wasn't that, like, don't get me wrong, there was people trying to price gouge here and there, but they were a very small number of people, and most of them went to jail. But for the most part, once someone got service back, they'd be like, hey, you know, reaching out to everyone they knew, it's like, hey, I've got service back, you know, if you need anything, come on by. You know, everyone is trying to help everybody else out. Even strangers and all that. You had people who, you know, with all the, like, power being out, refrigeration failed, food became a concern for a lot of people. So you had people who had food to spare. We're all chipping in and doing stuff, and we're not even talking like soup kitchens and that, because we didn't have them in the area. It was just genuinely like, hey, people are hungry, let's all go, there's this park over here, let's just set up an event. Anyone who can contribute, please contribute. You know, we're all in this together. And that's been the response I've seen in every single disaster I've been in. And like I said, there'd always be the one jerk who buys up all the generators and tries to price gouge them or whatever. And usually they manage to get away with it for a little while. And then they get arrested because there's actually laws against that. That we have price gouging laws here in Florida because of that very specific scenario. Quite literally, very specifically, generators. Because it became a humanitarian issue, and they put a stop to that pretty fast. Not that no one gets away with it, but the people who try to like really go for it, you know, it's just a matter of time before they get caught. Oh yeah, that's I believe that's what I'm talking about very last learning, because I believe that corresponds with the Ice Age. If I'm remembering correctly, it was during the Ice Age that, you know, basically Neanderthal as we know it got wiped out. Like, they done. We have to go one last little past the last thing. And then Homo erectus, which is, well, there's Homo, wait, was it Homo erectus and there was Homo sapien, and we're Homo sapien. Homo erectus became Homo sapien. Or was Homo erectus before? It doesn't matter. Basically, the Neanderthals got wiped out in the Ice Age, and then we very narrowly survived the Ice Age. And the reason we were credited to surviving, despite Neanderthal being a bit more hardy, was Neanderthal had a far more limited variety of food they could eat. And then they weren't as good at stuff like throwing rocks and spears and that kind of stuff. So they were tougher, hardier, but more limited on what they could eat. I believe they had a higher caloric intake is what they believed they needed to, you know, sustain life. And then on top of all of that, they did. That happens at the same time. It's the thing, like, with a lot of stuff, it's not usually one thing that wipes them out. So, when you look at it, it was with the Ice Age, the populations plummeted, there was lots of, you know, crossbreeding and all that between them, and by the time the Ice Age was over, they were gone. But it was overlapping things that Neanderthals really struggled during the Ice Age, at the same time that, you know, like, all forms of humans struggled. But yeah, no, it's one of those things that's like a little A, a little B, a little C. Yeah, no, definitely there was intermingling between Neanderthal that did lead to, you know, effectively them having their populations decrease because, you know, they took on our traits and all that. You know, became us, whatever you want to go with. Became Homo sapien. That they were hybrids that just gradually became more and more Homo sapien as time went on. Right. Some of, like, the big advantage is Homo sapien, again, us, do have, compared to other varieties of, you know, human precursors, whatever, is when it comes to endurance running, like just being able to just jog for extremely long periods of time and just keeping a good pace, Homo sapien was the king out of the various hominids for just being able to keep it. That was like our main hunting tactic, was you'd catch something like a, my brain said muffalo, which is not a thing, woolly mammoth. You'd catch something like a mammoth or whatever, and they wouldn't just go up and keep poking it till it dies. That was part of the equation. But, you know, we would poke it, and it'd get all defensive, and it'd try to run away, and we'd follow it around, and we'd poke it, and it'd get defensive, and we'd just basically not let it rest until it had nothing left to give. And then when it, you know, kind of collapsed, then we'd finish poking it. And then for smaller game, like rabbits, foxes, stuff like that, we were really, really, really good at throwing things. Yep, we existed with like 5 other human species at the same time. Yep. And the others didn't make it. Which again, a lot of that was some of them intermingled with us. And over time, as we continued to survive and they continued to struggle, you know, became more and more part of us. Which there's going to be some amount of those traits that we got from them and all that. Like, I don't know where the lines are between a lot of that stuff. Because it's not like we bred and then just one vaporized and the other was there. There would have been some blending of it. Because we also ate them too? I mean, I don't think that was a major thing. I actually have no idea. After the long dark taught me you can't throw for crap. Well, yeah, no, it's a thing. Like, if you're talking raw precision over anything else, humans aren't the best at it. There are lizards who shoot blood out of their eye, as upsetting as that is, if you want to count it, that are pinpoint precision. And there's a few other animals that do have pinpoint precision, but only at very short ranges. That they can, like, throw quills, like, super accurately. But humans, we can just, like, pick up a rock, and even if we don't hit the target, we can land in the approximate area, and that's way better than most animals. To be fair, 90+% of animals can't throw a rock to start with. Yeah, no, exactly. I'm not saying they didn't. Like, I'm agreeing that they bred with us. That is absolutely a thing that occurred. There's a lot of folks now around who are finding aliens and monsters to have revelations with. Turns out we did that a long time ago. We're half-elves? What? I am so confused about all... Oh, you're saying, like, what they claim that aliens and monsters do to us. You're like, oh yeah, no, we actually already did that. So, we have this fiction, but it's also kind of based on something that actually did occur. Just, you know, not with aliens and monsters. Man, absolutely. But, it was partly they bred with us, partly that we had evolutionary advantages to survive the Ice Age specifically that carried us through, whereas, you know, there's different ones who were less adapted. Like I said, Neanderthal, I remember they had a far more limited, like, they were more limited on what they could eat. That was one of the things that was a real big hurdle for their survival. And then as things got desperate and they had to go after smaller, like whatever game they could get, that they had to go after smaller stuff, they weren't as good at stuff like throwing spears and rocks and stuff. It wouldn't even be spears at that point, but, you know, throwing stuff to catch animals and all that, that put them at a disadvantage, so they got out-competed by us, by Homo sapien as well. But it's like with all these things, it's not, how did they die? This. It's how did they die? This, and this, all kind of mingled to all pile on to the problem. Because, like, the Ice Age was definitely a critical factor there. The change in what available food they had was a factor there. You know, effectively breeding into another species to, like, slowly kind of disappear was a factor there. They were less adaptable, which was more of a factor there. So it's one of those things. It's the same thing when people talk about, like, economic problems. We don't need to get anything specific so it doesn't get, like, overly political or whatever. Is you'll have people be like, oh, it's just that issue. Oh, if we just did this thing. And they would, you know, like, the whole thing supposedly fixed. It's like, well, no. It's a complicated problem that there's going to be, like, 4 or 5 moving pieces with any individual thing. And it's not that you can't do stuff to improve it or anything. You absolutely can. But the solutions are never as simple as just one thing. There's always a conflated number of, you know, factors that pile in on it. Just like us today, we're still adding to the problem. Looking at you, climate change? Uh-huh. Yep. Yep. That's definitely the elephant in the room. At least we're at a point where not, like, there was the thing where, like, half the population of the world was denying it. At least we're past that point. There still are deniers out there, but they're pretty few and far, you know, in between nowadays. They'll disagree on the cause, but even that's starting to go away, which is progress. There's still a lot of them, though. Now it's a lot of people are arguing about, like, the severity or what should be done, which is progress. Painfully, upsettingly slow progress, but progress. Progress that really does need to go a lot faster. But that's the way so many issues that have uncomfortable solutions to them go, is people keep trying to kick the can down the road to make it the next person's problem so they don't have to make the uncomfortable solutions. Looking at you, retirement, you know, stuff like Social Security. We don't need to dig into that far than I already have. I shouldn't have gone that far as is. But, the reality is, and this could be just, like, non-specific, if you got a problem that isn't going to inherently solve itself or go away itself, it is going to continue to escalate until something does solve it. Usually, that solution ends up having to be more and more extreme as time goes on because the circumstances become more and more extreme as time goes on. A problem ignored rarely gets better. Not never. There's absolutely things that we stare at the face and go, oh my god, this is going to get worse and worse and worse. And then some new technology just completely replaces it. And you go, oh, okay, well I guess we just ignore that problem. But that's really rare. Right, so we kickflip it? Yeah. I feel like one of the reasons is you can't ignore it now. Like, there was a lot of people who could ignore it because it wasn't really impacting them, but we're getting to the point that the places not being impacted are getting so few and far in between that about the only way you can ignore it is to take the ostrich approach of bury your head in the sand and pretend it's not there. Alright, so if you have to bear with me, chat, I just realized it is like 9:30, so I'm going to finish this row. I need to take a quick, you know, couple-minute break to make some food happen, welcome my wife home, that kind of thing, and all that. I do appreciate everyone that's been hanging out. I do know it's been like a quieter stream and all that. Because I started in the just chatting category, that's going to have hurt us a lot. Because very genuinely, a lot of people just see the category you start your stream with, and unless they catch back in, you know, they don't check again, which is fine. I also know that Farm Sim hasn't done as well on the channel as of late, but it's fine. It's usually more of a wind down game. But part of that is we haven't had a whole lot happen in Farm Sim in a good while, so far as like new DLC or whatever. Which there is a new DLC they announced yesterday. At least I think it's either today or yesterday. I actually knew about it, but I wasn't allowed to talk about it because of information embargo. But that said, it's a mod pack DLC, which is not my favorite. Because a mod pack... Sorry, not a mod pack. It's a pack DLC. But usually what that is it's third parties who do mods making a paid-for mod kind of thing. Yeah, no, I realize you did that, but it's the classic of how many people are on Discord versus how many people watch the channel. I do appreciate it, though, by the way. That does still help. All right, so what's going to happen is I'm going to take about a 5-minute break, welcome my wife home, figure out what the heck we're doing for dinner, and I'll be right back up. So thank you again for tuning in, and I'll be back here in just a couple minutes, and then we'll get on for the rest of the stream. So thank you again for tuning in. Whew, I almost didn't get that swing off.
Take a sip.
I don't know why we didn't see her approach us. That was spoopy. They're constantly like, I'm hungry. I'm thirsty. And there we have it. Next clip. We got 48 beavers. 39 plus 9. 48 for the population. So another dare drop knocked out of the park. Imagining the military base with no loot or nails. Oh, hear me out. Even worse. Do the no loot and use the mod that makes all of the cars super duper trashed. That's gonna be a problem because you won't be able to find wrenches and screwdrivers and that stuff to do the maintenance to repair a car. Like, you just won't be able to find a car to repair. You know what we should do that our characters haven't done? Let's have a lantern. A sky lantern thing. We've done this, I think, 3 or 4 times in this run, and we have had not a single one that has been a positive experience. So, we'll see if this one's better. It's the first time we've had one with clear skies. No. I'll just... If you're ever wondering, chat, you shouldn't leave school in session in a toxic environment. Or don't mean like toxic like people are mean and not kind and all that. We're talking toxic as in like, you know, industrial waste. Also, children, you should have grown up faster. We talked about it. Well, it takes care of your overpopulation of children. Yeah, but it took care of it a little too good. She was in a fit of rage. She was really bored. She wanted something to do, and she had a knife. You know, we've all been there, right? Just you get a little bored, and you would just attempt to murder. Yeah, I don't know about anyone else, but if you have a colony where you've got 12 kids that you've raised there, definitely MVP parent, because that is a lot of kids. Yeah, so we gotta find a lung, an eye, and a kidney. Like, the endgame campaign that they expand, that's fine. I don't hear many people complain about that, because it's usually only like 4 or 5 leagues before they do a reset kind of thing. But they'll like expand on it, or add a new layer to it, or completely overhaul it. Like, the endgame part's fine. It's just the campaign with innocence and sin and all that. You're like, alright, look, man. I'm real tired of killing innocents again. You do your best, Semi. You got this, buddy. They're totally dead. Alright. Here's a network connection thing. I'm curious what happens, because my client will decide if I got grabbed. There was a good I mean...
I feel like it would not be this brazen in your single-player runs.
Oh, no. Not with my settings at all. No. Going in here aggressive, straight death. Alright. And Sir is getting blasted again. Sir Ice Mage has taken the lead and is immediately spun out. Oh no, never mind, that was someone else. And Sir Ice Mage, I think, has taken the win for us at the last second with a bot right on your tail. Wait a second. No. Shenanigans. No. No. Shenanigans. What is this? But I could absolutely put myself in a Hurt Locker with how much spicy I'm into. Like, one of my favorite flavors is habanero. Like, I think I have genuinely somewhere in the area of like 12 or 14 bottles of different types of habanero hot sauce in the house. I don't have a problem, you have a problem. I can quit anytime And 3, 2, 1, it'll be fine. All right. And let's see. Oh, Arena Renovations? Yeah, that was a fun game. It's definitely like a B quality simulator game, but it's in that same realm of like House Flipper, that kind of thing. But it's based around like sports arenas and that kind of stuff. So you go into like dilapidated, destroyed sports arenas like tennis courts and basketball courts and all that, and you pick it up. It's definitely not the best in that genre, like far from it, but it was very enjoyable. It's one of those games I've debated on my own time going back and playing to see how it's done over the years, or year, or whatever it is. String, please. Okay. Oh no. Yeah, if you look at clips, Twitch is really bad about when you change your category, about misassigning the clip to the wrong category, even when I know for a fact it was set to the right category for a good hour or two or longer when the clip was taken. There's plenty of clips I have that are in Project Zomboid that say they're RimWorld, or RimWorld that's Project Zomboid and stuff like that. And unfortunately, I can't edit and change that, because I would love to do it. But it is just a thing that when you take the clip, it assigns the category, and that's just it. But thank you for the welcome back and all that. Now, that said, it will be a game you've played during the stream. Usually what happens is it's whatever game you started the stream with will be what it's, incorrectly set to. So, like, if I played RimWorld and then City Skylines, there's a good chance City Skylines, a clip from there, might show as RimWorld. I really do wish, and it's something that might happen as I keep building out the featured clips functionality. I really do hope that with the featured clip, because they've made it, I believe they made it so I could change the title. I wish they would make it so I could change the category. And I would be okay if they did something like you can change the category, but only to a category of game you streamed during that time or something. Because I get the abuse that they might be worried about is that, a new game comes out that, like, is doing extremely well, and so you'd take the clip, change the category to the new game. But hear me out, my solution to that problem would be people who deliberately and maliciously, like, misattribute categories is already against TOS and is already a suspendable offense. It's the exact same thing as when people, like, they go in the Project Zomboid category and then they play Marvel movies. I mean, they're also violating copyright. But the thing they actually usually get dinged with is not having the category set correctly is usually what they get suspended under. That said, they would absolutely also get suspended under, just straight up ignoring copyright law, but, that's also a problem. But I would like to be able to go back. Twitch doesn't like violating categories. Oh no, like it's one of the, they give you like a hand, like they have like the whole TOS of things that we have to follow and all that. But one of the ones that they take the they don't let us do anything with is they like, they'll have the reminders of saying like, hey, remember you are required to disclose if you're sponsored. Hey, just remember you can't, you can't do, like, make money this way or that way. Hey, nudity is not allowed. Hey, hate speech will get you banned, like that kind of stuff. And one of the ones that's on there is like, hey, make sure you're in the right category. Especially now that Twitch does automatically handle whether or not something should be mature content flagged based on category. So if I'm a channel that's normally not flagged for mature content, and then I go to play like Elden Ring, it'll automatically turn on the mature content flag. So I don't have to sit there and keep track of every category carefully as much as I used to. That said, most of the games I don't have to worry about in general. I don't play very many games that I really have to worry about that. They didn't touch clips for years, and then they added feature clips, but didn't fix anything under the hood. Yeah, my hope, though, is they did make it so with featured clips you can change the title on clips that existed, even if, like, if they're a clip of my channel, but not my clip, I can change, like, I can feature the clip on the channel, and I can give it a name, or, like, I could change the title. So to me, being able to change the category feels like it'd be a relatively easy thing, relatively simple thing for them to do. But I could also see, unlike the title, there's an argument to be made of where people could use that, you know, could use that maliciously. But my whole response is, okay, but when they do that, you just ban them. And you be done with it. Like, that's one of the pros and cons. There are so many creators on the platform, I don't get sometimes why they're willing to bend really hard for people who want to skirt the lines on a lot of stuff. I would probably be one of those people who, if I was running the moderation and it was like, hey, no nudity, and people started like pushing down to having just like a stripe across their chest and being like, well, it's not nude, I would give one warning and say, hey, look, you obviously know what I mean by this. I will enforce this based on the spirit of the rule. I don't care about the technically right or not. Like, I'll give you a temporary suspension, say, don't do that again. And if they keep doing it, then we will be done with you. And it's not even a thing specific with nudity. It can be with, like, gambling or anything else where it's like, there's this rule, and people are like, ah, but technically, you said it needs to be this or this or this. And technically, if I do this one thing, and I use this interpretation, and like, look, man, we both know what that rule means. You can technically me all day long. We both know what that rule, the point of that rule is. You're still gonna get knocked for it. Because they do already have a thing in the TOS that basically says, look, we can ban you for what the heck we feel like. Because everyone does that. They don't just ban people because like, meh, we don't feel like you being around. But it's a catch-all, so legally speaking. Yeah, no, but my comment actually going back to that. So your next thing, Twitch keeps their guidelines vague so they can selectively enforce it. Just like YouTube and all this. There's also, as much as it... So there's a catch-22. Vague rules and laws are problematic because of stuff like selective enforcement, and then they can be misused, especially if the person has nefarious intent. And I'm talking about like the entity in power has nefarious intent, which usually applies more to laws and government and all that than for platforms, but it can be either or. But there is a reason to as well do them vague that is not nefarious, which is dealing with all the people coming up with their new metas and new whatever strategies to deliberately try to wiggle around the rules because they were too specific and you found a technicality. And vagueness does help account for that. And there's a lot of argument to be made for specific and vague pros and cons. I prefer specific. But at least I will, you know, play the devil's advocate of saying, right. But especially with, like, the nudity thing. if you get to be specific, the more specific you are, the more edge cases you can sneak past the edges of it. If it's vague, you don't have to write a new rule every time. Yep. Well, that's the reason my thought with, like, especially the current metas right now and all that, you have your vague rule or whatever, and you just say, yeah, we're just going to enforce it. Now, I will say the selective enforcement is a problem that I personally feel shouldn't be one. And the reason it shouldn't be is obviously that Twitch has an incentive. If someone's making Twitch millions of dollars, they have an incentive to not ban that person from their platform, or to suspend them temporarily as a slap on the wrist, but then let them back on. The problem is that creates a double standard, and that has its whole baggage that goes with that. I go and say, look, you've got a lot of people who want to consume the content on this platform, and you got a whole lot of people who are trying to make it. If you got someone who's being the naughty child who's on the top of the pile, and you're like, oh, but they make us millions, yes, slapping them is going to hurt you in the short term. I honestly don't think it'll hurt you that much in the long term. You find the one person who goes too far, like above and beyond too far, you slap them down, you make an example of them and tell the other ones to get in line, and if they don't get in line, you slap the next one down. And what'll end up happening is those gaps will get filled by the people who are willing to play by the rules. Because people are still going to want content. Let's see, they updated our TOS regarding Naughty Night. You can see them moving their goalposts every few months. Probably. I mean, even the CEO came out saying he would like to be able to bring back the, you know, artistic nudity being accepted. Because I do think they want to allow that. It's just, they very much ham-fisted it the first time. They panicked because of the pushing of a new meta, and felt like they needed to clarify immediately on the spot, and when they did, they just didn't handle it right. So that was, like, I won't even blame Twitch for that situation, because it was effectively they kind of got their hand forced to do something of some capacity right away. And they beefed the response. Like, basically, they had what they wanted to do, but they didn't have the technical side in place to do it the way they wanted to do. I feel like if they had the technical in place, then it would, like, you'd still have a lot of people grumble, certainly. Like, not everyone would be happy about it, but I feel like it wouldn't be that big a deal. Versus, they didn't have any of the technical in place, and then they made the policy change, and it immediately got abused to the max. Alright, so we've got April knocked out, so we're good here. But yeah, if they manage to do stuff like do a lot better about category enforcement and doing all that kind of stuff right from the get-go, and making sure it's not on the front, like not allowed on the front page, and ban anyone who does do the category violation with nudity, like if they were really on top of that, then it wouldn't have been a big deal. And I'm talking on top of that from the technical and the moderation side, but they just weren't. I've said, I know a lot of people disagree, I actually have no problem with that content existing on the platform. And we are good. You know, the people whose responsive think of the children, it's like, but the children can go anywhere. But there's a quest for user's voice to make two-factor authentication on Twitch not terrible. It's the highest voted ticket. It's been sitting there for 3 years. They don't even care about the security. Making you mad because you care about security. No, I agree. Like, that to me is a more important thing. It's like fixing two-factor authentication to be better. That's one I'm entirely behind, being like, yeah, like, get that done. Because that, no matter what your personal preferences, opinions, or whatever about the platform are, we can all agree, you know, cutting corners with security, or I shouldn't say cutting corners, not keeping up with security in a way that's well documented and understood is in itself like a major problem, versus should we or should we not allow certain content on the platform is a lot more subjective. that we can argue back and forth, versus this is a security feature that, you know, you can choose to use it or not, but really needs to be supported. So think of the children. They're on Twitch. They have internet access. They will find what they want. It's your job as a parent to prevent it. Exactly. That's been because that's been an argument I've had to deal with as someone who's dealt with, you know, network administration, taking calls, to going to people's houses to fix their computers and all that. That a whole lot of people, they'll vent about, it's like, oh yeah, you know, kids can go on the MySpaces and the Facebooks and they use it for sex. And you almost will be like, here, let me let you in on a very, very well-documented secret. That isn't a secret at all. Does it exist? Teenagers will use it for sex. That's just the way it is. It's not the thing they're using that's the problem. It's how are you addressing the other part of that equation? Like, are you sitting with your teenager and having those uncomfortable discussions to help them make better choices in their life? Are you going through all that? No? Then do that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
I love you.
I love you more.
Yeah, it's like, that's the kind of stuff you need to be worried about. Because I remember it was a big deal, a huge deal when I was a teenager. It's like, you can't let your kids get phones, cell phones. They'll use that for sex. And they had all the news articles like, yes, children are using their cell phones to sext each other. And it's like, yes, that is an obvious thing. Do you know what they'd be doing if they didn't have cell phones? About the same thing, just not on cell phones. They would be sneaking out and doing that. Sure, there are barriers you can add to make it less convenient and yada yada yada. And as a parent, you can make the decision to not allow your kid to do certain things. But the reality is, they got raging hormones that they don't fully understand. Your job is to help them understand those so they don't make dumb choices. Your job is to teach things like consent. And to be like, hey, just so you know, if you do this thing, there is some real big potential consequences that you gotta be aware of. And if you're gonna do these things, here are the ways to mitigate some of those consequences. Saying another good thing that people try to push on Twitch is to have the email verification enforced before being able to interact with chat, follow channels, do whatever. Because when you think about it, only Masquerade Beyond... Oh yeah, no, I 100% am on board with when you sign up with Twitch, you are required to do the email verification, which for those who don't know what that is, it's pretty straightforward. You sign up, you say, hey, my email is bob@email.com. And they go, cool. We just sent a link to bob@email.com. Click the link. And then you click the link and it goes, cool. We verified you have that email. And you can still get around email verification extremely easy, but it is still an extra step. And honestly, when it comes to a lot of stuff like security and moderation and all these other things, there is no fixing the problem. What you're doing is you're adding more and more hurdles that they have to climb, and that there is a certain number of hurdles that a person says it's not worth it, and they stop trying to get past. Let's see. If not, they'll be a parent 16. I mean, that is one of the concerns. But yeah. But also with like email verification, you can do stuff like do the email verification. They will get your IP address at the time. They can sometimes get certain hardware addresses from, usually it's your network, not your individual computer, but like your router or modem, whatever's the like the farthest outside exposed part. They can get that information, and they can verify that. And that also helps when someone says, no, my account got hacked. I didn't do that awful thing. I didn't say that racist tirade. I got hacked. And then what ends up happening is they go, oh, let's check. Hey, look, they logged in your account from your IP address, and the hardware address matched. Very clearly, that meant it came from your house on your own hardware. I'm gonna go on a limb here and say, you know what? You probably didn't get hacked. You probably said something, got in trouble, and then went, oh crap, there are consequences for my actions. And then you don't let that person back on the platform. And then meanwhile, when someone says they got hacked, and you look at their information, and their account got logged into an IP address from Russia, you go, oh, yeah, no, that definitely looks like you got hacked. And you're good. Yeah, no, I'm like, if you had said, like, is email verification required, I'd be like, I'd assume so, because it's so weird that they don't have that. I don't worry about that. We are ready to advance a month again to get to the point of harvesting the wheat. Now, keep in mind, we no longer have the baler, or the baler wagon. That's what we had to give up to make the harvester happen, but I'm okay with that. But if you see me not picking up the straw and all that, that's what's up. I would have to buy equipment to do that. And for me, it is currently more important to get the, what's the word? It's more important for me to get all the other stuff set up and working than that. Alright, so let's get the harvester going first. So if we check on our fields, our wheat fields should be ready for harvest. Whereas the other fields shouldn't. Yeah, but it's these two little fields here, the ones I'm thinking we get rid of first. I have not gotten to use this harvester enough times. It makes me real happy when I use this harvester. After using that micro harvester forever, and this thing that's like literally 3 times and some changes its size, and faster and more capacity and everything, it is real nice to switch. You can set so your own chat requires to be verified. Yeah, that was a new thing that you could, like, you had some stuff you could set up, but it was only like this last 2 weeks or so. Oh, it was follows. You could set your chat up to require verification, but you couldn't set up follows to be required to verify. And that was the whole thing. Yeah, that's what things have been meaning to do, is to require. I've been really meaning to do email verification as a requirement, which I know would cost me some viewers, but it's one of those things that the vast majority of the people aren't doing that, or the people who are deliberately trying to avoid things. That ends up just being a pain. Did we shout out Allison Adventures, by the way? If we didn't, we should. Because I don't remember. But those who don't know Allison Adventures, an absolutely fantastic creator on the platform, you should definitely check out. Plays a lot of Project Zomboid, so if you're looking for Project Zomboid, you can absolutely find it there. Yeah. Sometimes it's just like, my brain is like, oh yeah, we definitely shout that person. I was like, wait, did we? Yeah, no, there's lots of issues that you can still get around. Hydroneer is great. The conversation's having not. Well, yeah, like a lot of this, like we circled back where the thing that started this was the whole discussion about, like, you know, adult content on Twitch. And I'm actually on team. I'm okay with it. It doesn't bother me. It's not content I personally consume, just like as I don't consume hot tub streams and all, like, you know, the weirder side of ASMR and all that kind of stuff. That's just not my vibe. But at the same time, I'm perfectly okay with all of that existing on the platform. And I do know the usual argument is, but the platform does allow people underage, and therefore that's a concern. And I go, you know what? I am on board that they do need to do more in regards to keeping that content off the front page and making sure people are appropriately categorizing and all of the other things that go into that enforcement. I do feel there's a lot that needs to be done there. But I'm also not against it existing on the platform. Because for me, the think of the children argument is, hey, you know what? If they're unsupervised on the computer, they're one Google search away from literal porn. So, like to me, getting rid of gambling on the platform is a much bigger issue. All right, Night Dweller, you take it easy. Thank you for tuning in, because gambling has an addictive nature to it. And there's a lot of stuff in gambling that skirts right up to the fence of what's legal and not legal. Now, don't get me wrong, Twitch also doesn't have an obligation that in different places in the world they have different rules about what content is and is not allowed that they do have to deal with. But that's a whole separate conversation between should it be allowed or not. I forgot the thing. While having a much higher capacity, time-wise fills up much faster because it picks it up much faster. I am thinking also it might not be a bad time to buy a bigger trailer, because I've been using a budget trailer we've had forever. I mean, there's a trailer for sale. I think that's actually smaller than the one I have. We have 22.5 or 22.5. So it can be slightly larger. All right. Maybe that'll be the purchase we do for this harvest right now, is to get that get a bigger trailer. Because this tractor can definitely handle it. Yeah, so that one I would seed, then I'd fertilize, then I'd herbicide, but that'll be a little bit yet till we do that. And of course, you finished in just the right position that I'm going to have to jump in the harvester to have it fill up the trailer. But yeah, because you can see, that thing literally took just over half the field in one go. That's not what I wanted. That's what I did. Alright, sorry about that. Okay. We'll actually see how much this trailer holds, because I don't remember. Like, if it can hold a better part of a field, I shouldn't say better part, if it can hold, like, an entire field in here, then I really don't have a reason to get a bigger one. But if it is one of those ones that we have to empty out 2-3 times for a field, then getting the bigger one would save me a lot of time and effort. Okay, yeah, let's get a bigger trailer, because that was 63% in one go. So I do think it's time to retire the little trailer. It's been here since the very beginning. But, oh, you know what? I remember why I didn't get the bigger trailer yet. Because I'm intending on getting the semi with the giant trailer. Right. That's fine. We'll put up with this trailer just a little bit longer. The next payday, I should be able to get the oil mill built, as well as the other stuff going on. Yeah, well, you do that. I'm gonna grab the cultivator. Because we can just keep all of this rolling. Because if I remember correctly, with this, I end up having a pretty fast turnaround from harvest to the next step. I'm pretty sure it's like literally, yeah, I harvest, and in 2 in-game days, I have to it's time to plant again. So I'm not ready to actually start that. Let the little tractor take on this for right now. Okay. Because, yeah, we'll go through the process of, you know, get a field done, you know, get it cultivated. I won't be able to seed or fertilize it yet, or herbicide or whatever, but you get the idea. Should be able to go pretty fast between the different steps. And you're going to short that field just a little bit, I believe. Nope, you got that. I think you'll short on the next pass, though, because of the rock there. I did adjust the field at one point to make it a little bit shorter to hopefully get around that rock problem. No, actually, it looks like you're going to behave. Okay. I was going to say, I did adjust it at one point, but I don't know if, like, I adjusted it enough. Okay. So get you here. Ready to empty that on the next pass. The harvester has enough of a lead that I should be able to get this into a better position than it is. And get it started doing the cultivating. I hope you reach the end of the other end of the field before you fill. Because then I can get the entire rest of this in one pass, then we can go to the next field and get it going. But we're going to be getting our next supply line started up in this in-game year. I'll be buying the oil mill. And then we were going to get the canola plant in that field behind me. Sweet, it was just enough. But so here's a hot tip before posting anything in user voice twist. Disable email notification settings first. You forgot to do it, so after leaving a comment on one of the ideas there, you receive 510 emails? Oh no. No. That's definitely not what you want. Hey Baranko, how's it going? So that new harvester, huh? Where it's big enough that we can have the giant cultivator going at the same time. Like literally we've got three vehicles all operating in the same field at the same time. And it just works. That was a weird slow down pause sort of thing. If you're saying that by your side, you need to relax, so you're here. Excellent. Not a bad idea. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and let you carry whatever's still in there to your next field. Snipe the tiniest little fraction of wheat that we have in the end of the field here because, I mean, I'm here. And we get set up on our next field. All right. Cool. But yeah, so this payout's going towards a oil mill to get the next production line online. And then we'll probably potentially get a bigger trailer. Maybe the semi-trailer. It really depends also on what sales happen, because sales can always change what we're working on. And you're lengthwise? That's fine. Okay. So we can ride in this until it's a little bit closer to full. Because we don't have another thing we need to be working on other than the fields we've already got going. Which is giving you a bit more of a spoiler as we get larger and larger set up with the farm. Is you'll have a lot more where I just set that cultivator up and just said go. And then, you know, working on other things in the meantime. We'll have a lot more of that happening. Where I'll literally just take one tractor, I'll put it here and say cultivate, send it on its way. Go to the next field, say cultivate, send it on its way. Go to the next field, say okay, we're planting here, send it on its way. And then whatever, like, it'll probably be the spray fertilizer will be the job I can never truly get away from, because it's... Unless I mod, which has definitely been a thing I've debated a whole bunch, is adding one of the things that lets me map out the path I want the AI to take versus just handing over the keys, so that I can help them make better decisions with their lives. I could take him out to eat a little of my dinner. The current thing we're working on more than anything else. So for stream, we have about an hour left of our first game for the channel, which is Farm Sim. So right now we're just trying to get our fields harvested so I can put together the money. that the plan is to buy the oil mill. Because what we're doing is we bought another tile of land over there. You can see where I've already plowed a field in it. That new field is going to be canola, so that we can move into a new industry and all that kind of good stuff. Otherwise, what'll end up happening is at 11 is when we do our game switch, which we'll have a vote to see what happens in there. I'll probably keep Farm Sim on the list as an option, but it won't be the only one. It's not going to be the same option we get a lot of times because I am potentially, like, you know, starting to get a cold kind of thing, so I'm kind of having a little bit of a brain fuzz type day. Do you have games in mind for the Switch? Enjoying Farm Sim? We'll be sleeping anyways, but wondering if, what I might sleep to. Let's see, could you briefly explain the money system works in Farm Sim? So just like how the money works? Here, I'm going to take over this thing. So the way you make money in Farm Sim is by selling stuff to, like, the various shops and all that. I'm using a special custom map that the gimmick is as nothing in it, really. But there is a sell point back at base. And so whenever you sell stuff, you get cash. As far as, like, your outputs, like, hiring workers to work, you can see it slowly drain my money. Doing repair on your equipment, you know, costs money. And all this kind of stuff. You have gas and maintenance and buying equipment and all that. And, like, operating costs for your buildings. But the gist of it is when you go and take whatever you got all the way to... There's a building in that, like, behind that row of trees way over there. But different maps have different sell points of different rates and all sorts of stuff. Alright, so let's just drop this real fast over here. But yeah, we are playing on the hardest economy setting, so we don't make that much money from our harvest. But in a lot of the other settings, you can make some pretty solid money pretty fast. No, I don't have the baler or the baler wagon. I got rid of those when I got the harvester to afford the things I needed with the harvester. And I haven't replaced them. That's the reason I got rid of the sheep as well. Is they depended on that. But yeah, so it's your product. Yeah, part of the reason I justified not buying the stuff with the sheep is it was the smallest sized sheep pen. And I do want to get back into doing the animals, but I'll wait till I can just buy the largest sheep pen and just get into doing the animals, like, properly get into doing that. Alright, and you're finished with that, so let's get you to your next field. But yeah, so for, like, what I'm doing here is this is wheat I'm harvesting right now that I've planted and all that. And one of the big things about Farm Sim 22 is they have what's, you know, the production lines. So it's not just, you know, I grow wheat and sell it. You can do that and you make okay money. But I take that wheat and I have it processed into flour. And that makes it so I get a lot more money from that wheat instead of just selling it as wheat by taking the time to make it into flour. And then I take it a step farther where I take that flour and I make bread. And then I sell the bread, and it's even more of a premium than if I just sold the wheat. So it's kind of one of those things that every extra step I put in the process, you know, I make a bit more money by being able to sell, like, the better, like, the more valuable good. So that's the reason why I'm not getting paid right now. I'm effectively delaying gratification by dumping all my wheat into the grain mill here. Who then, in turn, you can see there's flour right behind me. Who then gives me flour, which I then put in the bakery to make bread, and then I sell the bread. I also end up selling a bunch of the flour, too, because I make way more flour than I can use, but you get the idea. Alright. But yeah. But there's whole production lines, and we basically finished the bread production line, so I want to get the next one going. Actually, I haven't looked at all production lines to even remember what all of them are. That's not the right place. Like, if we look at our production lines here. Construction. So, like, I'm going to be making the oil mill, which lets me get oil out of that. I can't remember if oil is the finished product or another step. I feel like it was the finished product, that there's not a building that consumes oil as part of its operation. I'm pretty sure it's a finished product. But I'm also not 100% confident in declaring it such. Oh, no, wait, it's not. Potato processing. I can make potato chips. Oh, you know what we're going into next, chat. We have a plan now. We have something to aim for. We've got our beacon in the sky, which is to make potato chips. Let's see. Bernardo saying, you have to talk to the teacher. Could you give me advice? I need to study for an exam, and the only resource you have is a self-sufficient PDF with 220 pages. Any idea how I could study it effectively? So, like, if you have to study the whole 220 pages, that's going to be pretty rough. What you might consider doing is when you look through that, like, the first time, like, what topics you need to know and whatever, the places you feel you're not doing as well, it might be worth taking your time to take that information and you know, translate it into your own words, like, write it off to your own so you have just the important bits that you're struggling with. And then the stuff that you've got, like, really nailed down to effectively ignore that. Like, look over it, make sure you got it knocked down the first time, but don't waste time going through it again and again if you already got it down. Because that'll help you take that $220 or $220, 220 pages and, you know, really kind of narrow it down a bunch. I have no idea about ChatGPT or anything like that. Me personally, I'd be hesitant to do it, but that's also, I haven't messed with it. But yeah, no, it'd be good to try and go into, like, because all of that's gonna have fluff. It's gonna have stuff you already know. It's gonna have stuff that you don't really care about, and all that. What I'm suggesting is trying to go into those 220 pages and knock it down to as little as you can, where you're not getting rid of stuff that you really do need more help with. Would be my big comment after that. As far as, like, do you want to do flashcards or, you know, write stuff about it or whatever, everyone has different stuff that does work. Sometimes taking the time to take an idea and then write it down as if you were going to try and explain that idea to someone else can be really effective in forcing you to think about the idea enough that, you know, you can get a pretty good grasp on it. Sometimes it's overkill or you just don't have the time because it's very time consuming to do it that way. Sometimes taking the different things you expect to be asked about, like making flashcards for yourself, can be good. That works for some people. I don't know what that's doing other than it's not what I... Oh, no, that's fine. Or is it fine? What are you doing? Alright, I'm intervening on this, because I don't know what it's doing, but it's not right. You typically wing it? That's a choice. Some people can make that work, and a lot of people can't. Be aware of what you are confident enough to do and what you just don't have a clue about. So you think it's going to be challenging? You'll take the advice and work on it? Thank you, teacher. Yeah. I mean, part of it is I just don't have enough knowledge about where you're at with the subject, what the subject is. Like, there's going to be a lot of variation you're going to run into based on your own personal experience. That's one of the things that makes teaching really hard, is you can't just stamp out one strategy for everyone. That there's a lot of, you know, a lot of variation you deal with based on different I'm trying to think of the word I want to use. Different preferences on learning and studying as far as what works effectively and not. I'm still... Oh. You literally just sat there and then turned off the... Oh. I don't want in the truck. I want in the harvester. It stopped putting out that because it shut off the engine immediately upon completion. Let's see, there's a gifted kid issue where you never learned to study because it just worked. Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. Let's see, Monarco says, do teachers see their students' success as their own? Is that a thing that makes them so happy they work with it? Most of the teachers I have known, I would say yes. I will also say it is not every teacher. There are definitely teachers who are just working the job, which is fine. It's fair. But also one of those things, you can't count on a teacher being that way, but I would argue more teachers than not do want to see their students succeed, and when students are not doing well, it can be hard not to take it personally, to take it like a personal failure and all that. But it is one of those things that it's not, you know, it's not all teachers one way or the other. But yeah, no, I actually do agree the idea of like gifted students ends up being more mixed bag than good. Because very genuinely, it's to actually take it away from the gifted thing. So when you're trying to like compliment people, like especially kids, developing people, there is absolutely a thing that you can kind of unintentionally put your kid in the corner type thing. So it's recommended to avoid things like saying, oh, you know, oh, Johnny, you're so smart. You know, I'm really proud of you being so smart, Johnny, because you've kind of pigeonholed them. And what I mean by that is what ends up happening is later on, when they're struggling, they don't have a way around that because they're just like, I guess I'm not smart. It's far better to be like, hey, you must have studied really hard to do that. Hey, you must have worked really hard to do that. Like, recognize the effort, not the result. Because you'll be better setting people up in the future to have, you know, to take studying that as higher value. Versus if you go, oh, you must be so smart, the moment they stop feeling smart, it ends up being like borderline crisis for them. Because now they're taking as they must be so stupid that they don't get it. Which, you know, maybe it's a topic they're having particular difficulty with. Maybe they haven't studied enough. Like, there's plenty of things that can be 100% a thing that's nothing to do with their intelligence. They'll lose their entire identity and go through a depressive crisis. College experience, what? Yeah, no, that absolutely happens. That, like, it's and it doesn't even have to be, like, smart. It could be, like, you must be so talented, like, for a musician. But then when they're struggling with a piece, then the counter-argument goes in their head that they must not be that talented. You know, and they can get very imposter syndrome about it. Where they, like, or not imposter syndrome, they could feel like they're in the imposter syndrome situation where they feel like they should be so much smarter and so much more talented than they really are when they are talented. They just need more practice or whatever. Let's see, how's it for you? Why did you like it? And is there anything about being a teacher that would be very negative? So, when it comes to me, I definitely took pride in my students, my learners, and their success. And for the most part, I didn't have to worry about my students struggling or failing or whatever. I was fortunate in that while my courses I taught were something people would want for their jobs and all that, they weren't requirements for anything outside that particular curriculum. So it's not like an English course where no matter what you take, you have to take your English course. So it's not your major, it's not that you're stuck there, so students don't see the value in it, and that you have to fight with a bunch of those things. So I didn't have to deal with that. My course was an elective. You were only there if you wanted to be there. Otherwise, you didn't show up. There wasn't a reason. I liked knowing that I was doing something that there's an argument to be said that I could be the best programmer in the world, but I can only work on one application at a time. So the amount of good I could do in the world, there's limits. There's limits on what my effort can accomplish. Now, as a teacher, I can then take that and I can compound that. Where if I teach 100 people to write that same program I would have written, I've now magnified what I can accomplish through my efforts by like 100 times. Now, obviously, that, you know, you have to take into consideration the fact that they're putting effort in, yada yada. But the point is I can scale the good I do in the world, you know, significantly higher by being able to effectively make others able to do what it is I hope to accomplish, kind of thing. Now, as far as negatives with it, honestly, a lot of the negatives come from people who exist outside of both student and teacher, who have a lot of strong opinions about what should and shouldn't be taught, how it should and shouldn't be taught, and have no knowledge or experience in that arena. And so listening to people endlessly blame that, like, whatever the immediate crisis is going on because, like, teachers are bad or the curriculum isn't good or whatever the thing is. And don't get me wrong, there's some curriculum that's absolute crap. But a lot of the people who sit on the sidelines and badmouth things and feel like education shouldn't get all the money it's getting despite the fact it can barely function with the money it has, and all those criticisms, and you're sitting there trying to do your best job, trying to do right by your students. You have students that some are struggling, some are doing well. You can hands down see them learning the things and getting better and getting more capable and all those things. And then at the same time, the peanut gallery's out there just dumping on your work. And just, it can be very soul-sucking to just feel very unvalued. And the whole time you're sitting there going, you know, you're ultimately going to depend on these kids, that they're going to be adults one day, and they're going to be filling your prescriptions, they're going to be seeing you as patients in the doctor's office, they're going to be fixing your computer, they're going to be building your home, they're going to be doing all these things. And you have a choice that you can give them what they need to be competent in doing these things, or you can deny them that knowledge, information, education, all those kind of things. And we all lose in an uneducated society. The quality of work suffers, the general health suffers, your economics suffer. Like, there's nothing but bad to come from that. And so it's really, really soul-sucking to put, like, your heart and soul into a job that doesn't pay well to begin with. And then have people just dump on you the whole time. It would be like bad-mouthing firefighters as they're putting out your house fire. It's just like, you do realize they're literally saving lives right now, right? Or it's like bad-mouthing doctors who are working triage. Because, you know, they're too expensive. You're like, they're saving lives. Sure, we can argue that it could be more efficient and yada yada yada, and you're probably right. But at the same time, that's not the doctor who's doing it. It's all like the other crap around the fringes, like insurance and all that are driving up costs. Yeah, people saying education need budget cuts, don't have a great education, or counter-argument, they have a great education, and they want to make sure that they're top of the pile, and others don't have that. There's definitely people who want to be the biggest fish in the smallest pond, no matter what size that means the pond has to be. Like, they're willing to let the whole pond suffer, so long as they get to be, you know, on the top of it. Yeah, no, it's all of the above. All these problems aren't simple. But yeah, it's also one of those things that you get bad-mouthed about teaching not being a real job, that you go in and it's like, oh, you only work, like, assume you're a college instructor. You only work, like, 3 or 6 hours a week, because that's how long your class is in session, or whatever the amount is. Like, It'll be depending on whatever. It's like 10, 20, whatever. It'll be like, you only work this many hours a week. Get a real job. And you sit there and you go, you do understand the being in front of the classroom is like the least time consuming part of this entire job, right? Like, I have to sit here for an hour-long lecture, and I'm probably going to be putting 20, 30 hours into planning, doing the slides, making sure my material's accurate, getting it all up to snuff. I've got papers to grade. I've got a whole lot of bureaucracy to deal with like attendance and all that stuff, which to me, taking attendance in college is one of the dumbest things. I understand because people have scholarships and they want to make sure people show up and yada yada yada. There's a reason for it. I reluctantly accept that. But also, if you're the one plunking down hundreds to thousands of dollars for a course and you decide to not show up, why do I care? Like why is that something that makes more work for me? Like, the only one who loses is you. I would still be upset you're not showing up for class and you're failing for it. Like, that would upset me, and I'd try to talk to you to convince you to show up. But that's not my responsibility. Like, that's not my responsibility, my fault if you choose to not show up. And then have to get like this ledger and do all that stuff. Because I also don't feel like there should be such thing as failing due to lack of attendance for a degree. If I skip every single one of my English courses for the entire semester, not once show up for class, but I do my homework and I finish my exams and I get an A, shouldn't matter. The fact that I never attended a lecture shouldn't matter one bit. I did my work. I demonstrated that I achieved the knowledge desired by the course. That's my opinion. Have you ever interacted with people with disabilities as a teacher? Yeah, no, I've had, most of them were learning disabilities. I also have had people who are legally blind. Have had, and when to be clear, when you say legally blind, doesn't mean they cannot see. Legally blind means the ability to see is of a significant enough impediment that they need accommodation. Which for my class, I already, because I was aware of a lot of this, I already wrote stuff really large on the board. I would hand out papers that you could take home and read on your own time. It was in, like, and I'm talking the in-class one, not the computer one, because that has a whole other basket. But like in class, I would actually talk through all the lectures, so if you couldn't read it, you know, you still had it. I think I had one person who they didn't live with a disability. They were temporarily in a wheelchair for the purposes of that course. They were effectively disabled during the time that they were stuck in their wheelchair because they had broken their leg. But generally speaking, it was never a big issue for me. But that's because I always tried to be empathetic, saying, okay, I always understood not everyone learns the same. Some people lecture help, some people written help, some people having assignments help. So I already was providing my course in a whole bunch of modalities. Now that said, there are a lot of things I could do better in hindsight, because this is back when I was like 19 is when I started teaching. So, like, I was a very young teacher for college. And so, like, some of the assignments I gave were not good assignments in hindsight. I gave vocabulary, which is terrible. Don't do that. Let's see. You're autistic? Is that the correct term in English? Yeah. Saying you're autistic is correct. The technical term is, autism spectrum disorder, but the common nomenclature would be that a person is autistic. So that's totally fine. And you're happy with now that you can get federal police agent here in Brazil? You're studying... Oh, you can be. Sorry, I misread. That's like you can get. I was like, what? I don't understand. Right, you can be a federal police agent here in Brazil. You're studying for its entrance exam too. Gotcha. I have no idea the curriculum going into that, but I do hope that one works out for you. Okay, so let's... Okay, so wheels are out. But yeah, no, it's good. That's one of the big things where we've been normalizing neurodivergent conditions and disabilities and all that more and more and more. Among many other things we're helping normalize. That it does so incredibly much to help so many people. Like, so many of those... Are you saying I have to drop that? That's so weird. But even while it's folding, I'm allowed to sure, whatever, game. Oh, jeez. Thank you for saying neurodivergent conditions. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Neurodivergent conditions. So, generally speaking, people who are neurodivergent do not prefer to be considered disabled. Legally speaking, when it comes to protections afforded by most countries, they are the same protections that are provided for people with disability. So it is one of those things that the legalese, they qualify as disabled, but in the preference and language, it's generally just, you know, not the preference. Usually for me, it's tricky. That's always one of those tricky ones because you don't want to... One of the things when it comes to interacting with people with disabilities is there's different preferences in how to deal with it, which does complicate things a little, but it's understandable that there are people who do not want to be defined by their disability, and some of them don't like some of the terminology around that, which is completely valid and fair. Thank you for the follow. Welcome to the stream. You also have people who don't want you to sugarcoat it, because when you use terms that minimize it, like sugarcoat it and make it seem a lot less of an issue than it is, it kind of helps people be crappy about it and to treat it like less than it is. And so there is that conflicting thing. And the easiest way to deal with it, you go, well, then how do I deal with that, is ask. Just ask how people want to be referred. And generally speaking, I've never had anyone cope an attitude if I use the wrong one. Also, don't have something of a disabled person without permit. It will make them... They don't move something a disabled person's... Oh, yes, absolutely. What Luxray is saying 100%. And especially, do not move a person in a wheelchair without first asking if the person in the wheelchair would like to be moved. You may be helping them. They may be stuck on the curb and trying to get over it because there was no disability ramp or whatever. Don't just run up, grab their wheelchair, and then lift them over the curb. Ask. Because you're going to scare the crap out of that person and probably upset them if you just run up behind them. It's like running up, it's like if you're trying to reach on a shelf and someone just runs up behind you and then throws you on their shoulders. It's about what that experience is. You might be okay with it. But if it's a total stranger, you might not. Yeah, I mean, it's one thing if a train is coming and they're stuck on the curb. Obviously, you can approach it in the same way. Like, the same way if, like, someone's about to get hit with a car, has, like, no disability involved, about to get hit with a car and you jump in and shove them. Sure. 100%, but that's a whole different animal. But yeah, it's basically get your consent. Ask first. The very last thing says, can your ADHD be debilitating times? Yes, it can. Does that mean you want to be called, you don't want to call it a disability? No. Even if it's accurate technically in practice? Yeah. Well, it's kind of one of those things is, for the purposes of considering a disability, it is. Like, it is something that makes it sometimes certain tasks can be very difficult to do, to a point that potentially requiring special accommodation. Which is usually when we're talking about disability, that's the key component, is will you need additional consideration, accommodation, or whatever. That's usually the line where something goes from being it's a nuisance to you to it's a disability. Like, you can have vision that's not good, but doesn't cross the line into being considered a disability, and that's supposed to be where that line in the sand is. Yeah, Lecter's saying, see, there are laws in Florida, don't touch someone who is elderly or disabled without permission, or you get charged with assault on disabled and elderly, and are fun charged. You know what? Honestly, that is fair. Because it's just the same thing. If you, again, you run up to someone and you just hoist them on your shoulders. No, like the person's not expecting it. They're not getting your permission. You just do it. That can get you in trouble too. I don't know what they would charge you with, but it would definitely be like, hey, like that's seriously not cool. Now, most likely you're not going to get in trouble beyond getting a talking to. Unless the person gets hurt or something like that, or they ask you not to and you do it anyways, then you're begging for a problem. But it's heavy on IT and finances, knowledge requirements. Recently, they ruled that any person with disabilities should be evaluated individually. People with autism and function. Yeah, that makes sense, which is how it should be. Like, when you're applying for a job and it says you need to make 10 widgets, it doesn't matter what disabilities I have. If I can produce 10 widgets in the time, it's irrelevant. I can do I can do the job. Like that's a big thing. Which is how it should be. It's just I also feel like when it comes to pay, it should be more about like what you accomplish, what you're doing, that kind of thing as well. But that's a totally separate animal. But yeah, no, it's the big reason that I find a lot of people who are neurodivergent bristle at being referred to as disabled. Which again, legally speaking, yes they are. But the reason they bristle about it as like your common being like, oh, here's my friend, they have ADHD, they live with a disability. Like, the reason people bristle at that is because, very genuinely, the term, like, calling someone disabled does have a negative context to it. That, generally speaking, people like to look down at that. And so it's understandable that you don't want to be lumped into that. Which is, now that I have been diagnosed as ADHD myself, so I am neurodivergent myself, it is one that I personally would also not be happy about being called disabled. It's just not how I picture myself. I imagine it's probably true of most people with invisible disabilities, such as like people who, again, legally blind, but not like, not the sunglasses and the stick kind of blind, where they're like total lack of sight. Where you can kind of keep your disability under the radar, I feel like a lot of them would bristle. And I feel like it's almost like you're someone living with a disability passing as not with a disability in like public society, and it kind of destroys that illusion. I don't know. It's a thing I've got a very mixed feeling about. Because, one, I know I wouldn't be comfortable being called disabled. That would bother me. But it also bothers me that bothers me. Especially as someone who advocates. Because it shouldn't bother me. But that's also, what logically makes sense versus brain fuzzy feels. That's something I hadn't actually thought of till just the last 10-15 minutes with this coming up, that it didn't cross my mind, because me being diagnosed as ADHD is a relatively new thing. That was this past year. Like, I've known I've had it for a super long time through my advocacy. You talk to people and they talk about the things they went through their childhood and when they got diagnosed with ADHD more and more, and you're like, why are you describing my life? And then you have people who were diagnosed and are like, oh yeah, I thought you knew you had it. That kind of thing, and you're like, maybe I do have this? Which, I talked to the doctor, and she was like, yeah, you really do have it. Yeah. It's a whole thing. Right, there's also that saying, Newfie Edge saying, it's the same same boat with ADHD and anxiety, and all that. That is just one of those things that, like, I feel like my situation with being ADHD is nowhere near as severe as someone who does not have the ability to use their legs, or someone who is blind, or someone who is deaf, or someone who is mute, or all the typical disabilities you would normally think of, the very tangible ones. And maybe I shouldn't feel that way, but I do.
Hello there.
Hey Bentley, how's it going? But like I do, like it feels like I'm taking away from a group that already has enough problems they're dealing with. I'm doing alright. I'm probably on the beginning of the cold. Lexer's saying misdiagnosed with ADHD, and it turns out, yeah, Asperger's. Yeah, so nowadays we don't use Asperger's anymore. We use autism spectrum disorder. The Asperger's have been removed from the DSM-5. It's just autism. Because that gets into the high functioning, low functioning label that isn't accurate and all that. And then the now you can choose to keep naming it, but it is going to be every time it comes up. I am going to mention that we don't use the label anymore, at least here, because it's not a legally recognized diagnosis anymore. So like, it's to educate. It's okay if you're like, this is what it was when I got it, and I'm sticking to it. That's fine. That's your prerogative. But I do want to discourage people from using the terminology, because also it's one of those things that the background for the term, it was literally a term. When we say Nazi here, we're talking literally Germany, World War II, swastikas. We're talking that. We're not talking people who are a little bit strict. We're talking literally it was a thing to qualify who does and does not get put in the chamber. Because there was a doctor had a personal interest in it. I don't remember all the details, so I was gonna be like, you're wrong on this minor detail. And you'd probably be right. But it is a big part of why it took forever for it to be put in and why it got pulled back out. But yeah, so it's okay if you want to do that. But just saying, we've been doing away with like high functioning and low functioning. That's not a thing anymore. It's more visible, less visible functioning kind of thing, where there is a list of symptoms. Everyone has where they line up a little bit more and a little bit less. Is OCD a recognized disability? I feel like it should be. I don't know for certain. I believe it is. As long as it's reached the point of severity that is medically recognized. Where a lot of people simply say, they'll be like, oh, I'm OCD about it, but it's not, they haven't been like actually like legally medically recognized or anything. It's like, no, that's just someone saying they're a bit not impulsive, that's not right. That things get to them, versus when they've gone through the process of actually going through and be like, nope, you've hit the point that this is disruptive to your life. But yeah, there is a lot of overlap between ADHD and autism and OCD, so they do get misdiagnosed for each other quite often. Just the same as a lot of people who get diagnosed with chronic depression and everything, they later find out it's not actually chronic depression. It's autism or ADHD or whatever, unmitigated, and, dealing with a world that they don't understand how to work with because they don't understand their condition, ultimately makes people pretty unhappy. It's pretty hard to be happy when your brain works in a way and the world says it needs to work in a different way, and that's just not how things go. All right, so let's see here. Yeah. Trying to think if there's anything I'm forgetting. I feel like I'm forgetting something. Let's double check, make sure we're good. So we have harvested the wheat, and we're going to be planting canola. Canola is tomorrow in game. Okay. But yeah, no, a lot of people are going through a lot of things. It's one of the reasons why when people get minimizing of other struggles, or, you know, they're like, oh, but your life is so good, or like whatever, just, you know, insert whatever argument you want to insert with all that. Okay, so it'd be a sorghum harvesting day and a canola planting day. But before we get all that, I'm going to save the game real fast, because we are at about that time of the stream that we do the poll to see what we're going to potentially switch to. I am going to keep Farm Sim as an option. And get all that sort of stuff. Yeah, no, that's basically the thing, is you never know the battles others are fighting. So when people are minimizing of each other, I don't have much patience or tolerance for that. Because you'd be like, oh, your life's so good. Why are you upset? It's like, hey, let me just unleash the baggage that people wouldn't write a movie about because it'd be too sad, that I'm going through right now. That maybe not judge. Just be like, hey, you know what? You're having a bad time. Do you want to talk about it? If you're in a place you're comfortable talking about it. To be clear, don't feel obligated to do that kind of stuff. And that's not me. It's like, don't trauma dump the stream. I like to try to help where I can, but I have to balance with like content creation and all that. You want to help everyone you can, but at the same time, you'll have people trauma dump real hard. And it's one of those things you're like, look, your trauma dumping can cause harm as much as, you know, it might be therapeutic for you. It's one of those things like there can be a place for that, but in front of an audience is not one of them typically. All right, let me go ahead and get the poll going. I'm gonna probably have a lot of the. Yeah, usually the way I go with it is to remember that when you're in a stream, it's not an individual conversation between you and another person. It is there's the streamer with their megaphone and you with your megaphone, and there's some things you probably just don't want a megaphone in front of an audience. It's like going to the movie theater and unleashing. But and also ask a person that says, hey, do you mind if I get something off my shoulders? It's kind of heavy. Because it is totally valid for a person to be like, actually, I'm not in a place I can do that right now. Because even people I know who are usually 100% on board with that, there are just days where like, you know what? Normally I'd say yes, but this particular day, I'm just not ready for it. All right. I don't even remember what I had for my list earlier today. So we have Farming Simulator, American Truck Simulator, Hydroneer, House Flipper 2, and I had another one on. I cannot do RimWorld right now because I may already have the new DLC installed. And it's under embargo, so I can't, you know, do anything with that. I don't know if like it has the content there, but I'm not gonna find out in stream and realize it broke embargo. So that's off the table. I'm definitely not in a headspace I want to deal with Project Zomboid or Kenshi. And I'm just trying to decide what I want to have for the last option. We do have Farming Simulator on there too. If people want more of that, they can just vote for it. But I am trying to put that out there. Oh, right. I had Stardew as well. And the thing with Stardew where I'm doing that, to warn you, Stardew will be achievement hunting. I've already done it. We are going to be achievement hunting if we do that. So expect if there's a fish I'm missing, I'm going to go get that fish, and I'm going to keep going for that fish until I get the fish. Just to be aware of what you're signing up for if you do that one. But yeah, so if Farming Simulator wins, we'll just keep doing what we're doing in the game. If American Truck Simulator wins, I mean, it's American Truck Simulator, you just hop in your heckin' trucks and have a good time. And all of that. If Hydroneer wins, we'll pick up where we left off. That'll also be achievement hunting territory, because we did finish getting all the things yesterday. House Flipper, 2, I would literally be playing the story because I haven't done a whole lot. Park your stuff so you know what you're doing. Yeah, that's what I'm getting ready to do right now. And then Stardew Valley would be achievement hunting. If it seems like this is an unusual selection of what I've got going on right now, did I just goof? Do I have to quickly avert my save? Okay, let's check. September? Yes, we done goofed. So we're going to just go, oh my goodness, I don't know what happened to Farm Sim. Dear goodness. My mistake. What has happened here? For those who missed what I did, I accidentally advanced the day after I'd already advanced the day. Which means I would actually miss when I am supposed to harvest some things and plant some things. Yeah, if you cannot see the poll, refresh. If you are on mobile, sorry, I can't help you. What am I up for? I can do any of these. That's the reason the list is what it is, and why I didn't include, like, Kenshi, and I didn't include a bunch of the other games that we have been playing recently, is I wanted to make sure that, it was all stuff that I'm down to play. And any of those I'm fine with. There isn't one I'm like, man, I'd like to play that one a little bit more than the other one. I'm just gonna pull the game back up and see if I messed up. Yeah, like, for the record, like, the cold thing is very mild right now, but I am, like, congested and all that. If my throat was bothering me real bad, I wouldn't be talking nearly as much. That was, like, honestly, I was starting to feel like the throat thing yesterday at the end of the day, but I thought it was just the jelly beans had fried my throat because of, you know, it was very clear they were just regular jelly beans they had capsaicin acid to. Don't say September. Okay, we're in August. Crisis averted. Okay, so we're good. We are good. So I'm not going to start this unless Farm Sim wins, but I will put the harvester next to the sorghum, because then I know harvest the sorghum. There's a big harvester, and there's that. And then I know I will want to grab this, and I plant the wheat tomorrow, but I do plant, or rather, you have a good time rather than voting for something else? Oh yeah, well, part of the thing is half the time I don't know what the heck I want to play. Very genuinely. There are days where I very clearly have something I've got in mind, and I will usually just skip the poll and just play it. It does happen. There may have been a reason why we had a lot of Stardew Valley, like, back to back to back. And I'll remember to set you to canola. Same deal. I guess it doesn't matter which way we approach this. There isn't a house. That's a bakery. Okay, so we've got you in position. And while that poll finishes, I'm going to clean up the goods laying around. Let's see. It was fun effectively watching you speedrun compared to my own Monday playthrough. Oh, the Hydroneer. Yeah, that's because that's the third time I played on the channel. And the last time we played, we took a lot of time with it, which is fine, but it was definitely one of those things that we had done, like, a good, like, 4 or 5 streams or more of it. Alright, so we got Hydroneer taking a strong lead at the end there. So I'm just going to quickly get the flour put in the warehouse here, and then we'll be good to go. Come on, spit out your last 3. And this is all I know with my ADHD. I will not remember at all what the heck I was doing. And before I knew I had ADHD, the way I would deal with it, and I still use this strategy to this day, is I will attempt to set up whatever needs doing so that it's in my way. So, like, if I had a letter I need to send out, but you know, it's raining outside, it's late in the evening. Yeah, no, I couldn't carry the box. I can only carry one high of the flour. So we were full. And that'll be good enough. Because then I have this sitting here, ready to rock and roll. So that when I come back, if I switch this vehicle, I'll go, oh, I need to move the flour. I switch this vehicle, oh, I need to seed the field. And if I go here, oh, I need to harvest the field. And I don't even have to think about it. I've already got it lined up. So let's save the game, quit the game. For those over on YouTube and TikTok, what is going to happen is you are going to have the stream abruptly end on all of you because there's switching categories over there just has lots of negative side effects. So it does mean I have to stop and start stream. So I do apologize about it. You should go complain to the respective platforms to take streaming more seriously. I don't want to sugarcoat it. It's just the reality. But thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and do all those things on YouTube and TikTok. Twitch, we're going to be playing our next game here in just a minute. And don't worry for the other platforms. You'll be back here in a few minutes. I just got to switch over the categories and everything. All right, so refresh that. We got all that. And we were switching to Hydroneer.